You stand upon the shore but listen closely. It is not the tide that whispers, but the ocean itself. It is a world without air, without light, an entity that covers 3/4 of this scarred globe, yet remains more alien than the stars. We fear what we can see. How deep is your terror of the endless, lightless volume that hides? Beneath the shifting surface, the calm blue lie, are trenches that swallow mountains, civilizations swallowed by the waves, and things that never ask for light. They wait in the crushing darkness, the pressure mounting, the silence deafening, into the cold heart of a liquid crypt. The sunken city of Wheeze and the eerie symbol. The deluge is not a natural event. It is a judgment, a betrayal, a chilling lesson in the arrogance of light. You are tracing the legend of the city of Yez, an Atlantean echo built upon the coast of Brittany, protected from the sea by a single, immense gate that only the king's daughter, the Siren Dahut, was trusted to guard. One fateful night she stole the bronze key, opening the floodgates to her lover, who was perhaps merely a disguised demon of the deep. The city of light, filled with merriment and sin, became a crypt of crushing water, sealing every soul beneath the waves in irreversible doom. But the horror of Wys is not merely the drowning. It is the fact that it remains, whole and terrible, beneath the churning tides. Divers and fishermen in the Bay of Douarnenez claim that on certain silent, misty nights, you can hear the faint, discordant ringing of the city's bells, a ghostly, submerged chime that drives those who hear it mad with the sound of forgotten pain. Beneath the silt and the crushing pressure, it is said that the stones of the great temple of Yis bear a recurring geometric mark, an eerie symbol carved by a civilization older than human memory. This symbol is not a protective glyph, it is an invitation. This sunken city is a key, a massive watery lockbox of historical horror. The same tale of catastrophic submersion, the instantaneous death of a populace trapped by their own folly, echoes across the globe, from the megalithic ruins off Japan to the silent cities of the Mediterranean. It speaks not just of sea level changes, but of a cosmic force, perhaps the series' lurking shadow, that uses the ocean as its preferred instrument of historical erasure. The flood is a pattern, a recurring motif in the script of human demise, and the fact remains, the King of Yis is merely sleeping, waiting to ride out on his horse to claim a world purified by salt and fear. The silent stonework of Yonaguni Monument. Journey now to the depths off the coast of Japan, where the immense terraced structure known as the Yonaguni Monument silently waits. Is it a natural formation sculpted by millennia of ocean currents, or the cyclopean remnant of a sophisticated, lost civilization that simply vanished into the sea? Its perfectly aligned steps, right angles, and enormous triangular forms suggest the deliberate hand of ancient builders, defying simple geological explanation. To view its scale is to feel the vertigo of deep time, realizing that human history as we tell it might be a pale, partial script. Archaeologists have debated the structure's origin for decades, but the unsettling element is the discovery of what appear to be carved tools and figures near the site, artifacts that resist simple classification. These are not merely stones, they are tokens of a people who mastered the earth and were then violently reclaimed by the waves, their entire existence wiped from the memory of the surface world. The very water surrounding the monument seems to hold a chilling resonance, a sense of massive, unrecorded loss that permeates the depths. We search for their name, but the ocean is a keeper of secrets, not a librarian. This deep-sea architecture connects directly to the central question, suggesting a pattern of sudden, complete erasure by water, a force that actively hunts the constructs of advanced societies. If the eerie symbol of Wise is an invitation to darkness, perhaps the symmetry of Yonaguni is the blueprint for a civilization that dared to rise too high, only to be crushed under the weight of the sea. The monument is a silent monument to what happens when history becomes inconvenient to the abyss. The stones of Yonaguni are the bones of a forgotten epoch. The library of Thonis Heracleion and the cursed idols. In the submerged ruins of the Egyptian port city of Thonis Heracleion, a different kind of horror was preserved by the silt, knowledge. This city, once a vibrant hub of trade and faith, sank entirely into the Mediterranean mud around the 8th century AD. When archaeologists found it, they discovered perfectly preserved temples, statues, and most chillingly, religious artifacts locked in time hinting at forgotten cults and practices. It is a time capsule of a deep Egyptian past, a silent library of ritualistic worship that was never meant to be opened again. The gods of the deep demanded this silence. Among the recovered treasures were numerous lead figurines and small statues of deities, some of which bore signs of ritualistic damage or were deliberately killed by having their limbs broken before submersion. These objects are not merely religious relics, they are potential haunted artifacts, infused with the fear and desperate magic of a people trying to appease the same power that ultimately swallowed them. The city's inhabitants knew the sea was rising, and their final acts were frantic rituals, attempts to send their curses and prayers down with their sinking homes, hoping to bind the darkness. The mystery deepens with the finding of an unnaturally high concentration of ritual daggers and specific ceramic vessels, suggesting sacrifices performed just before the final, catastrophic shift in the earth. Thonis Heracleion is a testament to the horror of slow, inevitable doom and the desperate acts of a populace facing the abyss. These sunken cults connect to the series' theme of supernatural influence, showing that even the sacred was not safe from the ocean's hunger. The salt water has kept the city's final terror fresh, a place where the whispers of ancient fears still echo in the currents. Pavlopetri, the perfectly preserved ghost town. In the coastal waters of southern Greece lies Pavlopetri, the world's oldest known submerged city, dating back 5 millennia. Unlike Heracleion, which was preserved by mud, Pavlopetri was frozen in time by the sand, allowing archaeologists to map its roads, buildings and tombs with astonishing clarity. This is the horror of the near-present past, a complete ghost town so utterly preserved that you could almost step from the shore directly into its sunken streets. It is a snapshot of an entire civilization instantly silenced by an earthquake or tsunami that struck with biblical force. The true unnerving quality of Pavlopetri lies in the perfection of its silence. No bodies were found, no signs of a struggle. It suggests an instantaneous, complete evacuation, or far worse, that the residents were simply swept away by the surge. They remain scattered to the deep currents, now anonymous nutrients for the sea floor. The emptiness of the homes, the absence of the human element, is more terrifying than any ruin, a palpable void where life once thrived. The streets are perfectly clear, waiting for inhabitants who will never return, a perfect illustration of history's sudden, brutal stop. The sheer scale of this ancient devastation raises the recurring question: was this a natural disaster, or was it the shadowy force using the immense destructive power of the sea to remove a culture from the board? The lack of evidence for a struggle ties into the series' conspiracy, suggesting a force so powerful that resistance was impossible. Pavlopetri is not just a ruin. It is a permanent, flooded memorial to the ultimate power of the wave, a reminder that the surface world is a temporary concept perched atop a liquid, hungry crypt. The underwater road of Bimini and forbidden geometry. Near the Bahamas, resting in the shallows, is the Bimini Road, a perplexing linear formation of massive, smooth limestone blocks. Proponents of ancient advanced civilizations argue it is a man-made wall or road, potentially connecting to the myth of Atlantis. Skeptics call it a natural beach rock formation, yet the geometric precision and the sheer weight of the blocks defy easy geological explanation. Its location in shallow water, so close to the modern world, makes its mystery feel immediate, a direct provocation from a forgotten age. This road is unsettling because its purpose is utterly alien to known historical timelines. If it is man-made, it represents technology and architecture lost to us, a sudden end to an era of impossible construction. What was this path leading to? And more disturbingly, was the end of its builders not merely an accident, but a deliberate sealing of this path? The very stone seems to hum with latent power, perhaps guarding the location of a deeper, more profound ruin that is still hidden within the Caribbean's deep-sea currents. The Bimini structure, like the Wise Stone, hints at forbidden geometry, a complex architectural knowledge that the shadowy force sought to bury. It is a historical anomaly that refuses to fit into our textbooks, a silent, monumental challenge to everything we think we know about the origin of civilization. This submerged architecture serves as a chilling testament to the scale of historical erasure, where immense works are simply dismissed as natural, allowing the true horror of a lost, powerful epoch to remain unchallenged in the depths. The unsinkable terror of the Mary Celeste. The true horror of the sea often involves silence and the inexplicable absence of violence. The Mary Celeste found adrift in 1872, perfectly intact, with a full cargo and 6 months' worth of provisions, is the ultimate ghost ship. The only thing missing was the entire crew, the captain, his wife and their daughter, a total of 10 souls who vanished without a sign of struggle or mutiny. They simply left the lifeboat, the captain's log, and their personal belongings behind, as if spirited away by an invisible, methodical entity. The ship's last entry spoke of calm waters and good weather, deepening the mystery of their flight. The scene on board was utterly unsettling. A half-eaten meal, a sewing machine with a garment still under the needle, a single cup of coffee left on the table. It was a domestic snapshot of life interrupted by an instantaneous, unseen terror. A moment frozen in time that defied all human explanation. This is the persistence of fear across time, the knowledge that something can simply take you, leaving no trace but the echo of your final sudden panic. The Mary Celeste is a vessel that carries the spirit of the series' central question. What dark force would require such a quiet, efficient disappearance? The ship itself became a cursed artifact, a symbol of the ocean's ability to create a perfect void. It is a floating tomb where the shadows of the missing crew still linger, their unknown fate a constant, chilling reminder that the ocean's horrors are not always loud and violent, but often terrifyingly subtle and permanent. The true nature of the Flying Dutchman. The myth of the Flying Dutchman, a spectral ship doomed to sail the oceans forever, bringing disaster to any crew that sights it, is a profound expression of ancient fears. Yet, the legend's chilling power comes from a persistent, recurring historical witness. For centuries, sailors from various nations have documented seeing a phantom vessel sailing against the wind or glowing with an unnatural sickly light, often predicting storms or misfortune. This is more than folklore. It is a shared historical hallucination, an oceanic premonition of doom. The original curse, often attributed to a captain's defiant vow to round the Cape of Good Hope even if it took him until Judgment Day, ties directly into the series' theme of cosmic judgment. It suggests that the ocean is not merely a physical space, but a spiritual arena where defiance of elemental power results in eternal, horrific punishment. The Dutchman is an immortal ghost ship, not because of a storm, but because of a metaphysical sentence, an open loop of suffering that sails forever. The true terror of the Dutchman is its symbolism as a harbinger. Sighting the ship is not an adventure, it is a death warrant, a direct message from the lurking force in the deep. It is a terrifying contradiction, a ship that can never sink, yet forever reminds every sailor of their own fragile, certain doom. Its perpetual wandering is a chilling metaphorical prison, an eerie symbol of human arrogance punished by an omnipresent aqueous entity. The historical accounts of the Kraken. The Kraken is frequently dismissed as a myth, but historical maritime records are filled with terrifying, consistent accounts of immense, tentacled creatures capable of dragging down entire ships. These are not fantastical tales, but documented reports from seasoned captains and naturalists dating back to the 18th century, describing an organism so massive it was mistaken for a small moving island. The sheer scale of the creature suggests a horror that exists outside the normal parameters of human comprehension. The terrifying truth is that these accounts likely refer to the giant and colossal squid, creatures that truly exist in the crushing darkness of the deep, a living nightmare far larger than any surface animal. The fact that an animal of such massive scale and predatory power could remain virtually unseen until the modern era highlights the terrifying truth of the deep. It is a biological crypt that hides true, living monsters. The Kraken's myth is simply the surface world's frantic attempt to label an unnameable, terrifying reality. The Kraken is the ultimate symbol of the hidden horrors within the deep, a tentacled arm reaching up from the abyss to pull mankind back into the primeval gloom. It personifies the ocean's sheer, untamable power, serving as the biological agent of the lurking force. Its documented size and rarity solidify the idea that the ocean guards things that are massive, terrifying, and always hungry, a chilling confirmation that the monsters of our myths are simply shadows of reality. The Bermuda Triangle, a nexus of curses. The Bermuda Triangle is not simply a geographical region, but a vast watery graveyard where the rules of physics and history seem to dissolve. The decades-long string of disappearances, ships and planes simply vanishing without so much as a distress call or debris field, defies all conventional explanation. It is a historical anomaly, a recurring hole in our reality, suggesting a persistent, localized power that feeds on human technology and arrogance. The triangle is a crucible where the elements conspire against the material world. Historical records show this area was feared long before the advent of flight. Early Spanish and Portuguese sailors called it the Sea of the Lost, reporting magnetic anomalies and compasses spinning wildly. This deep history suggests the area is inherently cursed, perhaps the location of a massive haunted artifact, an engine of chaos or a portal, hidden in the abyssal plains. The Bermuda Triangle is a place where the veil between the known and the terrifyingly unknown is consistently, violently thin. The sheer volume of vessels and souls lost in this region, often without trace, lends chilling credence to the series' central theme. A shadowy force enacting a localized campaign of historical erasure. The Triangle's power is the ultimate paradox, a region of clear skies and calm waters that instantly transforms into a void, silencing all human communication. It serves as a permanent active monument to the ocean's terrifying selective hunger, a place where the logic of the surface world fails. The deep sea, sounds that defy science. The greatest fear of the deep is often the sounds it makes, or rather, the sounds it hides. In the 1990s, scientists recorded an ultra-low frequency, immensely powerful underwater sound they nicknamed the bloop, which was far too loud and too complex to have been made by any known animal. Though later attributed to an ice quake, the original mystery instilled a profound sense of awe and terror. A sound so powerful it could only have been made by something utterly massive, something unimaginable in the absolute isolation of the abyss. The documented accounts of submariners hearing inexplicable, rhythmic metallic sounds or the faint grinding noise of what sounds like massive machinery operating miles below the surface further the paranoia. These are the whispers of ancient fears translated into acoustic data. They suggest that below the surface, in the pressure-crushed trenches, something is not merely waiting, it is working. The ocean is not a quiet grave. It is a workshop for a force we cannot comprehend, a soundstage for unseen, terrifying operations. These recorded anomalous noises, often termed bioacoustic unknowns, serve as a direct, chilling communication from the realm of the hidden horror. They are oral proof that the ocean is teeming with secrets, or perhaps a single, enormous secret that simply breathes in the crushing darkness. The sound is the motif of a massive living consciousness, an oral manifestation of the central question that demands to know: what unseen power is vast enough to create a sound that travels across entire ocean basins? The black box recorder that spoke of panic. Every time a plane or ship vanishes into the ocean, the black box recorder becomes a haunted artifact, a final word from the abyss. The most chilling accounts involve recorders that capture the last 30 seconds of an accident. These recordings often don't contain sounds of a crash or explosion, but rather the sudden, horrified silence of the crew, followed by a quick, sharp intake of breath and a high-pitched sound of pure, unadulterated terror before the signal cuts out. These final moments suggest the crew saw something or realised something that was more terrifying than death itself, a sudden, visual confrontation with the lurking force. The panic is not about the mechanics of the crash, it is about the reason for it. The sudden, unified gasp speaks volumes, a historical rhetorical reenactment of a shared, final moment of absolute dread. The ocean keeps the sight that caused the terror, but it occasionally releases the sound of the victim's final, desperate realization. The black box, designed to record data, becomes a chilling document of the soul's final moment of fear, a perfect microcosm of the central question. It is proof that a dark force is at work, capable of producing a horror so profound that it paralyzes human communication before swallowing the evidence. We listen to these recordings, and we are not hearing an accident. We are hearing the sound of the ocean claiming a life, a silent, sudden, terrifying act of erasure. The cults of the deep and Dagon. The worship of fish gods and oceanic deities is not mere mythology. It is a historical constant, an eerie symbol of humanity's deep subconscious fear and reverence for the water. From the Sumerian Oans to the Philistine Dagon, these half-man, half-fish figures are often depicted as bringing both knowledge and destruction from the sea, suggesting a shared, global memory of an ancient, terrifying interaction with an aquatic intelligence. These cults were historically documented as practicing rites near the shorelines, often involving secretive, nocturnal offerings thrown into the water to appease the deep. This behaviour suggests a cultural memory of a time when the ocean's entities held direct visible power over human life, not just through storms, but through active, predatory intelligence. The stories are veiled warnings from antiquity. Never turn your back on the sea, for the sea remembers its masters. The recurring motif of the deep-sea cults ties directly into the series' theme of supernatural influences, suggesting that the shadowy force might be an ancient aquatic intelligence that has merely receded from the surface world. The cults are a historical mechanism for keeping the open loop to the abyss ajar, a constant reminder that the creatures below are not merely animals, but symbolic figures of a forgotten, monstrous hierarchy that waits for the tides to turn once more. The whispering coffins of the Monitor. The wreck of the USS Monitor, a Civil War ironclad that sank in a storm in 1862, offers a unique kind of maritime horror. The entire crew who died was sealed inside the wreck's turret, their remains preserved in the steel shell for over a century. Historians and salvage experts have described the chilling feeling of the turret being a tomb within a tomb, a perfect metal coffin sunk miles below the surface. The salvage of the turret became a race against time and a moral quandary. The structure was a collective grave, and the act of retrieving it felt like disturbing a perfect, silent, and incredibly heavy sepulchre. Those who worked near the site reported hearing faint metallic echoes, or the sound of water sloshing with an unnatural rhythm, often dismissed as acoustics but felt as the whispers of ancient fears, the muffled panic of the men trapped inside the dark, crushing steel shell. The monitor's turret is the ultimate symbolic imagery of the ocean as a historical prison. It demonstrates the sea's power not just to destroy, but to perfectly preserve human suffering. The ironclad, built to be unsinkable, was ironically transformed into an unopenable coffin, a profound paradox. The sealed-off fate of the crew is a chilling representation of the series' theme. Even the most powerful human creations are powerless against the deliberate, methodical coldness of the deep. The terrifying stasis of the anglerfish. The anglerfish is a verifiable biological embodiment of the hidden horror. It lives in the abyssal zone, a world of absolute crushing darkness, where it uses a single bioluminescent lure to draw prey into its immense, horrifying mouth. This creature is a perfect predator of the void, a living example of how evolution can create pure terror when unconstrained by the light of the sun. It is a biological metaphor for the deep's predatory intelligence. The most disturbing fact about some anglerfish species is the phenomenon of male parasitic mating. The much smaller male bites into the female, slowly fusing its body to hers, until he becomes nothing more than a permanent passive source of sperm. He literally dissolves into her flesh, a living symbiotic horror show. This reproductive method is a profound biological symbol of consumption and loss of identity in the depths. The anglerfish is a crucial piece of evidence in the series' central question, showing that the abyss breeds an utterly alien form of life, monstrous, efficient, and horrifyingly adapted to the absolute darkness. This creature proves that the ocean does not merely house monsters, it designs them. It is an eerie symbol of what happens when the light of the surface world is completely extinguished, demonstrating the depth of the dark force's power to corrupt and consume. The ocean's collection of nuclear ghosts. The historical record confirms that the world's oceans are a radioactive cemetery, a watery grave for numerous scuttled nuclear submarines, lost warheads, and countless containers of low-grade waste. These haunted artifacts are silent, ticking time bombs, historical horrors waiting to be unleashed, preserved by the same water that conceals their presence. The cold, deep currents are slowly but surely corroding the metal, setting the stage for a future catastrophe. The knowledge that a small, deliberate tremor or an accidental deep-sea excavation could release this apocalyptic contamination into the global ecosystem is a profound source of modern watery dread. This is the persistence of fear across time, where the horrors of the Cold War are simply passed on to the silent, unsuspecting deep. The ocean holds not just the ancient fears of myth, but the most potent destructive failures of the modern age, waiting in the darkness. The silent radioactive wrecks are the ultimate paradox of the ocean's role in the series. It is both the great preserver of history and the future catalyst for global doom. The ocean is patiently holding humanity's ultimate self-destruction, serving the lurking force by simply waiting. This collection of nuclear ghosts is a chilling reminder that the deep does not need to manufacture its own horrors. It simply collects and nurtures ours, waiting for the perfect moment of devastating revelation. The myth of the sea people, merfolk. The legend of merfolk is almost universal, spanning cultures from the Caribbean to Scandinavia. But the historical accounts often describe them not as beautiful sirens but as terrifying, malevolent entities. Early sailors' logs and coastal folklore speak of creatures who deliberately lure victims to their watery doom, capable of emitting a hypnotic, high-pitched scream. These are the symbolic imagery of the ocean's seductive yet ultimately fatal power. In many ancient traditions, merfolk are seen as the cursed descendants of lost people, or perhaps the intermediaries of the true, dark force in the abyss. They are the beautiful lie that cloaks the deeper, grotesque reality. The fear is not just of drowning, it is of being pulled willingly into the darkness by a false promise of light, a tragic contrast between silence and revelation, the silence of the surface world against the terrifying truth of the deep. The terrifying analogy of the merfolk is this. They are the ocean's agents on the fringe of the human world, the bait that keeps the central question alive. Their consistent appearance in historical accounts confirms a shared, global consciousness of a predatory aquatic intelligence that actively seeks to claim human souls for its deep, silent master. They are the smiling messengers of the lurking force, promising a watery doom. The abyssal plains, the ultimate historical void. The abyssal plains, covering more than half the Earth's surface, are a world of profound, crushing darkness, an environment so hostile it can only be described as a planetary crypt. Historically, these plains were viewed as a final destination, a place of no return for anything that sank. This is where the truly terrifying historical artifacts are, things so deep that they have never been seen by human eyes, sealed by 4 miles of crushing water. The historical horror of the abyssal plains is that they are the ultimate repository of lost data, a black hole of historical record. The cold temperature and immense pressure preserve organic material that would decay on land. Below the surface is an actual graveyard of millions of years of life and history, a silent testament to the vastness of human and pre-human death. It is the perfect environment for the hidden horrors to remain undisturbed. The abyssal plains are the lurking force's ideal domain, a perfect metaphor for the dark, forgotten space in human history that the series explores. It is an endless, silent world where the rules of the surface are suspended, a place of permanent stasis. This is where the most powerful haunted artifacts sink, forever out of reach, guarding the keys to the central question, their secrets sealed by the sheer, terrifying weight of the ocean itself. The cursed coin of the Nuestra Señora de Atocha, the recovery of the treasure from the Spanish galleon. Nuestra Señora de Atocha in 1985 brought to the surface millions in silver and gold, but also a wave of terrible misfortune to those involved in the find. Historical accounts of the shipwreck in 1622 speak of a violent storm that seemed unnaturally focused on the ship, leading to accusations that a specific ceremonial artifact on board was cursed. The subsequent history of the wreck and its recovered gold is filled with tragedy. Accidents, strange deaths, and financial ruin have plagued the salvage teams and collectors. This suggests the gold itself, particularly certain unique coins and ceremonial silver crosses, are haunted artifacts, carrying the original curse of the storm and the fear of the 260 souls who drowned. The ocean released the treasure, but not the terror. This event is a modern repetition of ancient fear. The wealth of the sea is never free. It always comes with a price. The ill-fated Atocha silver serves as a chilling reminder that the deep does not simply hold treasure. It holds power, and it enacts a chilling long-term vengeance on those who dare to breach its crypt. The gold itself is now a symbol of the dark force's long memory, the phenomenon of sea light and fatal allure. For centuries, sailors have reported sea light, or mareal, unnatural bioluminescent phenomena that sometimes stretch for miles across the surface, often mistaken for a floating city or a spectral manifestation. Historically, the beautiful, eerie glow was seen as a profound foreshadowing of disaster, as ships were often lured off course or sailed directly into hidden reefs by following the mesmerizing, ghostly radiance. Science suggests the glow is caused by massive blooms of bioluminescent plankton, yet the timing and intensity of the displays often defy simple biological explanation. The phenomenon taps into the symbolic imagery of the ocean as a deceptive entity, using false light to conceal absolute darkness. It is the ocean's siren call, an aesthetic lie that leads directly to the permanent silence of the deep. This sea light is a historical mechanism of the lurking force, a gorgeous and ethereal deception that perfectly illustrates the central question. The sea's beauty is a terrifying contrast to its hidden horror, a moment of revelation that precedes doom. The light beckons, the sailors follow, and the ocean claims another human element, leaving the surface world to wonder if the light was a natural wonder or a deliberate act of predatory allure. The lost continent of Mu and the Abyss's library. The myth of Mu, a colossal lost continent that supposedly sank beneath the Pacific Ocean, is a vast, terrifying counterpart to Atlantis. While highly speculative, the historical consistency of the belief, spanning various Pacific island cultures, suggests a shared, deep cultural memory of a massive, sudden geological catastrophe. This is the repetition of the wise-type horror on an unimaginable continental scale. The horror of Mu is the scale of the historical erasure. If the Pacific did swallow an entire landmass, it represents a volume of lost knowledge, technology, and civilization that dwarfs all recorded human history. The sinking of Mu is the ultimate act of the shadowy force, a planetary-level purge of a people that perhaps knew too much or built too high, a chilling contrast between silence and revelation. Mu, if it lies in the deep, is the ultimate library of the abyss, holding the absolute keys to the central question. The existence of this concept, a sunken continent, reinforces the terrifying power of the ocean to simply remove entire eras from the global consciousness. It serves as an immense symbolic reminder that all of human history is but a fragile footnote in the vast, submerged annals of the deep, the ritualistic ship burials of the Viking Age. The Vikings often performed ship burials, sinking their massive, ornate vessels to serve as the final resting place for their powerful dead. While the recovered remnants are archaeological marvels, the original intent was terrifying: to give the deceased a vehicle for their final journey, or perhaps to sacrifice the valuable ship to the sea gods to ensure safe passage for the living. This ritualistic surrender is an ancient analogy for paying the abyss its inevitable price. These sunken ships, like the Oseberg and Gokstad vessels, are themselves haunted artifacts, imbued with the power of their kings and the rituals performed before they were surrendered to the waves. The discovery of preserved bodies and grave goods creates a chilling, direct link to the fears of an ancient people who viewed the sea as a final, permanent, and powerful entity that must be constantly appeased. The fact that the Vikings, a seafaring culture, felt compelled to sacrifice their most powerful possessions to the deep reinforces the idea of a universal lurking force. Their ritual burials show an acknowledgement of the central question. They knew the ocean held a power that could not be reasoned with, only deferred. The silent, submerged longships are now historical symbols of humanity's ancient, grudging respect for the abyss's eternal appetite. The terrifying anatomy of the vampire squid. The vampire squid, Vampiroteuthis infernalis, whose scientific name literally translates to vampire squid from hell, is a verifiable living horror from the deep. It is perfectly adapted to the oxygen minimum zone, an environment so anoxic that almost nothing else can survive, making it an unchallenged ruler of a lightless toxic domain. Its anatomy, with its dark, velvety skin and cloak-like webbed arms, is an exercise in biological dramatic horror. Unlike other squids, the vampire squid does not hunt, it waits. When threatened, it pulls its webbed arms over its head, creating a terrifying, spiky defense posture known as the pineapple or turnip display. This is a moment of pure, primal sensory immersion into the biological terror of the abyss, a dark, silent creature that turns into a menacing black void of spikes and shadows when confronted. This creature serves as a biological symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to create life in the most hostile conditions. It is a terrifying contradiction, a living entity that thrives in the absence of life, proving that the ocean's dark realms are not simply empty. The vampire squid is the perfect predator of the void, a living, breathing testament to the horrific possibilities of life forged under crushing absolute darkness, a terrifying answer to a part of the central question. The sea serpent sightings of the colonial era, historical documents, including official logs of naval vessels and detailed accounts by reputable sea captains during the 17th and 18th centuries, are rife with consistent reports of immense, serpentine creatures known as sea serpents. These reports were often dismissed as simple legend, yet the consistency of the descriptions, long necks, dark scales, and immense length, suggests a shared historical truth. One of the most famous reports, published in 1848 by the captain and crew of HMS Daedalus, described a serpent-like creature with a 40-foot neck and a terrifying presence. These sightings were not isolated events, they were a repetition of a universal maritime dread. The sheer volume of reputable witnesses suggests that the sea was a historically more volatile, monstrous place than our modern narrative allows. These sea serpent sightings are a historical bridge between myth and reality, a chilling illustration of the persistence of fear across time. They reinforce the idea that the ocean holds secrets so vast that they defy modern classification, serving the lurking force by simply existing. These immense, shadowy shapes gliding beneath the waves are the living embodiment of ancient terror, an ongoing answer to the central question regarding the hidden horrors of the deep. The Bermuda Triangle's electronic fog, one of the most unsettling, non-traditional historical accounts emerging from the Bermuda Triangle, is the phenomenon of the electronic fog, described by a pilot who claims to have passed through a strange, swirling green-yellow cloud that caused all his instruments to fail simultaneously. He reported a terrifying sensation of time slippage and disorientation, as if the aircraft were being briefly pulled into another dimension, a true mystery reveal with layered progression. While anecdotal, the concept of a weather phenomenon that selectively incapacitates electronics and warps reality aligns perfectly with the series' supernatural themes. The fog is a frightening localized force field, suggesting the triangle's power is not random but deliberate, perhaps a veil woven by the shadowy force itself. It is a terrifying physical manifestation of the open loop to a darker non-physical realm, waiting to claim human victims. The electronic fog serves as a profound symbolic imagery of the ocean's ability to erase technology, rendering modern science useless in the face of ancient power. It is the deep's way of silencing the surface world's interference, an active mechanism of the lurking force to maintain its crypt. The fog is the ultimate warning. In the deep's most sacred, cursed places, human invention is not merely ineffective, it is actively consumed and negated. The Baltic Sea anomaly, a perfect geometric disk. In the depths of the Baltic Sea lies a colossal circular object nicknamed the Baltic Sea Anomaly. Discovered in 2011, this massive 200-foot wide formation appears to be a perfectly geometric disk resting on the seabed, complete with what look like a massive ramp and stair-like structures. Its composition and origin defy all conventional geological or historical shipwreck explanations, making it a profound historical mystery. Divers who have explored the anomaly report that the electronic equipment inexplicably malfunctions when they approach it, a direct repetition of the electronic fog phenomenon of the Bermuda Triangle. This suggests a shared, unknown energy source, or a deliberate technological field that guards the object, preventing modern man from fully comprehending its nature. It is a deep-sea haunted artifact of colossal scale. The anomaly, with its perfect unnatural geometry, is a chilling, eerie symbol connecting the sunken cities of the Mediterranean with a deeper, more profound mystery in the northern seas. If it is man-made, it represents a pre-Ice Age civilization that mastered technology we cannot imagine. If it is not, its terrifying perfection implies a non-human architect. The Baltic anomaly is a direct, massive answer to the central question, hinting at a global, intelligent force buried in the deep. The Carroll A. Deering and the Ghosts of Hatteras, the 5-masted schooner Carroll A. Deering was found perfectly abandoned off Cape Hatteras in 1921, another classic ghost ship mystery. Like the Mary Celeste, food was found prepared in the galley, but the crew, their personal effects, and the ship's navigation equipment were all missing. The ship was found stranded in the treacherous Diamond Shoals, a historical region known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic. The unnerving discovery was that the steering gear was disabled and the lifeboats were missing, suggesting a sudden, organised departure or a struggle against an unknown force. The investigation at the time hinted at a conspiracy, but the lack of a plausible explanation cemented the Deering as a profound maritime mystery. This is a chilling rhetorical reenactment of panic, where the evidence points to a terror so great that escape was the only option. The Deering is a historical symbol of the lurking force's ability to create a perfect crime at sea. The ocean consumed the crew and the story, leaving behind the shell of the ship as a silent, symbolic imagery of the sudden, brutal power of the deep. It is a reminder that the ocean's horror is systematic. It removes the witness, the record, and the evidence, leaving only an unsettling, unanswerable open loop for historians to puzzle over. The historical fear of ignis fatui, sea will-o'-the-wisps. Historical accounts from coastal towns worldwide are filled with stories of ignis fatui, or foolish fire, spectral, glowing lights seen hovering over swamps, marshes, and especially the churning coastal surf. These lights, often pale blue or green, were universally considered an omen of death or a malicious spirit leading travellers to their doom. The sea's version of the will-o'-the-wisp is a direct analogy to the deep's seductive, fatal power. While modern science suggests these lights are combustion of gases, the historical fear was profoundly personal. The light was an entity actively attempting to consume the traveller. Sailors and fishermen reported seeing these lights in the darkest, stormiest conditions, seeming to beckon them directly toward hidden rocks or violent currents. This is the sensory immersion into the atmosphere of the ocean's terrifying deception. These spectral lights are a historical manifestation of the supernatural influences that the series explores, a recurring motif of false light leading to absolute darkness. They serve as a terrifying ancient reminder of the ocean's active participation in human doom. The sea will-o'-the-wisp is a classic example of the dark force using an ethereal, beautiful lie to fulfill its terrible purpose, fulfilling the darkest aspect of the central question, the lost treasure of Lima and the curse of the Betsy. In 1820, a vast treasure from Lima was secretly loaded onto the Betsy to save it from rebel forces, only to be guarded by a single captain who was entrusted with the entire wealth. The captain and a small group of cohorts betrayed their trust, murdering the escort, then burying the treasure on a secluded island. The historical horror began when, one by one, the conspirators died, often violently, or went insane. The surviving conspirator was later forced to reveal the treasure's location, but the detailed maps he drew were vague, and the man died before the final retrieval. The treasure of Lima, believed to be hundreds of millions in gold and jewels, remains lost and cursed. It is the ultimate haunted artifact, its legend intertwined with betrayal, murder, and the long-term chilling vengeance of a historical curse that transcends death itself. The ocean's role in this is crucial. It hides the cursed wealth, acting as the silent warden of the doom. The lost treasure serves as a perfect symbolic imagery of the dark force's ability to use human greed and betrayal to further its own ends. The hidden jewels are now a powerful anchor for the curse, waiting beneath the sands for the next greedy victim to stumble upon the island's terrifying historical retribution. The terrifying anatomy of the viper fish. The viper fish, Chorliodus sloani, is a verifiable monster that perfectly embodies the abyss's predatory efficiency. It has a jaw so hinged it can literally swallow prey larger than its own head, and its immense fang-like teeth are so long they actually curve back outside its mouth when closed. Living in the deep bathypelagic zone, it uses a glowing lure on its dorsal fin to attract victims into its grotesque razor-sharp maw. The fish's horrifying appearance is an analogy for the pure, unconstrained power of natural selection in the absolute dark. It is a creature designed to kill, with no concession to beauty or efficiency of movement, relying only on its grotesque visual terror and overwhelming anatomy. Its existence proves that the deep is not benign. It actively fosters forms of life that are fundamentally monstrous and horrifying to the surface world's sensibilities. The viperfish is a biological contrast to the light of the surface, a chilling answer to the central question. It is an eerie symbol of what the lurking force is capable of creating when it is not constrained by sunlight. This creature is the dark force's ultimate biological emissary, a permanent, wide-jawed grin in the infinite blackness, a reminder that the deep's inhabitants are pure predators of the void. The sea boggart and coastal folklore. Throughout the history of the British Isles, local folklore speaks of the sea boggart, a localised malicious spirit or entity that haunted specific stretches of coastline, often causing drownings and unexplained accidents. These boggarts were tied not to a generic sea god, but to a specific historical locale, usually a treacherous sandbar or a cluster of rocks, suggesting the geographical features themselves were cursed. This is a powerful example of repetition in history, where specific geographic hotspots for maritime tragedy were historically personified as malevolent entities. The belief in the sea boggart was a way for coastal communities to process the randomness and terror of drowning, but it also points to a local, concentrated supernatural influence. It suggests the lurking force has agents tied to physical, permanent anchors in the shoreline. The boggart's localized terror serves as a chilling foreshadowing for the Bermuda Triangle's systemic localized power. It is a microcosm of the central question, focusing on the boundary between the land and the deep, the liminal space where the dark force has its easiest access to human victims. The whisper of the boggart is the ancient whispers of ancient fears translated into coastal legend, a warning against straying too close to the water's edge. The SS Cyclops and the Vanishing Fleet. The vanishing of the USS Cyclops in 1918 remains the single largest loss of life in US Navy history, not related to combat. The immense 542-foot-long ship vanished without a trace in the Bermuda Triangle region, along with over 300 crew and a massive cargo of manganese ore. No wreckage, no debris, and not a single lifeboat was ever found. An instantaneous erasure that defied the ship's size. The horror of the Cyclops is compounded by the fact that two of its sister ships also vanished without a trace in the same area in the following years, suggesting a terrifying, deliberate and localized predator was at work. This is a profound historical repetition that eliminates the possibility of simple, random accident. The three ships were swallowed by a single, systemic problem in the ocean's core. The Cyclops' disappearance is a catastrophic symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to target and erase the symbols of human progress and power. The complete, absolute nature of the vanishing is a direct challenge to the central question, forcing us to confront the fact that an unseen force is capable of obliterating not just one ship, but an entire distinct class of vessel, leaving behind nothing but the chilling, unanswerable silence of the deep. The deep-sea hydrothermal vents and chemosynthesis. The deep-sea hydrothermal vents are fissures in the seabed that spew superheated, chemical-rich water, creating ecosystems that thrive without sunlight, drawing energy from chemicals instead of photosynthesis. This biological phenomenon, called chemosynthesis, is a profound and terrifying discovery. life can flourish completely independent of the surface world's most fundamental element, the sun. The life forms around these vents, giant tube worms, bizarre shrimp, and strange deep-sea crabs, are utterly alien, adapted to a toxic, crushing environment of extreme heat and dark chemicals. They are biological proof that the ocean harbours a complete self-sustaining world that answers only to its own dark set of rules. This is a powerful contrast to the life of the surface, a chilling biological mirror. The vents are a biological analogy for the lurking force's independent power. They are self-contained worlds of perpetual darkness and energy, completely divorced from the sun's light. These alien ecosystems are an eerie symbol of the abyss's potential to breed utterly new, unknown forms of life, a constant reminder that the horror beneath the waves is not just death, but a terrifying, thriving, dark vitality. The Lost Library of Alexandria and Watery Knowledge. While the destruction of the Library of Alexandria is commonly attributed to fire or neglect, some historical theories suggest a massive destructive flood or seismic event that submerged the coastal sections of the city, sending untold volumes of ancient scrolls into the sea. The horror is that the ocean may hold the world's greatest collection of lost knowledge, a silent, watery archive of human thought. If the deepest secrets of ancient philosophy, science, and history were preserved in the cold, dark waters of the Mediterranean, they are now inaccessible, a permanent tragic loss that prevents humanity from solving its most fundamental historical open loops. The ocean acts as the ultimate censor, guarding the very truths that could answer the central question of the lurking dark force. The submerged library is a powerful symbolic imagery of the ultimate horror of the deep. It is not just a destroyer of lives, but a systematic destroyer of knowledge. The scrolls, if they exist, are the most profound haunted artifacts. Keys to the past that the dark force has chosen to seal away with the sheer, crushing weight of the sea. The abyss guards the answers we seek, the Titanic's grand, perfect silence. The sinking of the Titanic in 1912 is a well-known historical tragedy, but the true horror is its final resting place. The sheer size of the wreck, split in two and resting in absolute darkness nearly 13,000 feet below the surface, is a profound and terrifying symbol of human hubris. It is the perfect, colossal monument to the fact that no human creation, no matter how grand, is truly unsinkable to the deep. The chilling discovery of the preserved wreckage, with its grand staircases and delicate glass still intact, creates an unnerving contrast between the violence of the sinking and the perfect, cold preservation of the deep. It is a historical snapshot of a high society world instantly sealed in a liquid vault, forever untouched by the light or the warmth of the surface. The Titanic wreck is a massive haunted artifact, a testament to the fact that the ocean remembers. The ghostly silence of the wreck, a constant reminder of the 1,500 souls lost, serves as a chilling repetition of the lurking force's power to create mass historical tragedy in a single, brutal act. The wreck's silent deep-sea vigil is a terrifying answer to the central question regarding the ultimate power of the abyss. The megalodon's lingering shadow. The megalodon, the largest shark that ever lived, is historically extinct, yet its terrifying legacy lives on in the ocean's collective fear. Its fossilized teeth, some the size of a human hand, are often found on deep-sea dredging nets, a constant tangible reminder of the immense predatory power that once ruled the waves. The deep is a storehouse of the biological hidden horrors of the past. The terrifying lingering open loop of the megalodon is the question of its true extinction. Though evidence suggests it vanished millions of years ago, the consistency of some unverified sightings and the vast unexplored volume of the deep trenches, where it could theoretically survive, fuel a modern, profound sense of dread. The ocean is large enough to hide a creature that is the definition of a super-predator. The megalodon's teeth are chilling, haunted artifacts, material proof of a biological monster so huge that it defies current imagination, a living analogy for the pure scale of the dark force. The historical fear it represents, creature that could effortlessly consume a modern whaling vessel, is a testament to the sea's power to nurture and hide the absolute masters of the food chain, always threatening to return. The drowned men of the Hunley. The recovery of the Confederate submarine H.L. Hunley, the first submarine to sink an enemy warship, revealed a claustrophobic historical nightmare. The entire 8-man crew was found at their posts, their skeletal remains perfectly preserved inside the hand-cranked vessel, with no obvious signs of what killed them. They were sealed in a metal tomb, victims of a perfect, silent and unknown deep-sea terror. The chilling theory is that the shockwave from their own torpedo explosion knocked them unconscious, or worse, that they were simply suffocated by the lack of oxygen, slowly realizing their metal coffin was their final, permanent prison. This is a profound, horrifying sensory immersion into the terror of drowning in absolute, unyielding darkness, trapped in a structure of your own making. The Hunley is a claustrophobic, metallic, haunted artifact, a historical symbol of the ultimate hubris of man's technology against the sea. The fact that the crew died at their posts, ready to crank their way to safety, gives a chilling contrast to the ocean's silent victory. The submarine remains a terrifying historical monument to the abyss's power to seal away human life with surgical, methodical precision, serving the central purpose of the lurking force. The ancient fear of the maelstrom. The historical accounts of the maelstrom, a massive, terrifying whirlpool off the coast of Norway, are a profound example of historical mystery storytelling that blends natural power with supernatural horror. Medieval texts and Norse sagas spoke of it as a gateway to the abyss, capable of swallowing entire fleets and even whales, a terrifying, localized force that represented the ocean's mouth. Edgar Allan Poe immortalized this fear in his tale of a man who survived the whirlpool by noticing the principle of its motion, but the historical fear was far more primitive. It was the terror of being pulled down into a dark, rotating, watery abyss that defied all attempts at escape. This is a profound analogy for the lurking force's power to create a localized, inescapable vortex of doom. The maelstrom is a geographical, symbolic imagery of the central question, showing the physical locations where the dark force has its strongest, most visible hold. Its terrifying, circular motion is an eerie symbol of the endless, cyclical nature of doom that the ocean enacts upon human history. The whirlpool is not just a current, it is a permanent, open portal to the crushing silence of the ultimate deep. The sunken vaults of Port Royal, Jamaica. In 1692, the notorious pirate haven of Port Royal, Jamaica, sank almost instantly during a massive earthquake and tsunami, with 2/3 of the city vanishing beneath the waves. The event was historically viewed as divine judgment on the wickedest city on earth. But the horror is that the deep preserved its history of vice, bars, shops and taverns, filled with artifacts of piracy and excess. When archaeologists explored the submerged ruins, they found clocks that had stopped at the exact moment of the sinking and the remains of victims crushed or drowned, a historical snapshot of instantaneous chaos. This is a chilling rhetorical reenactment of final sudden terror, where the historical record is perfectly sealed at the moment of ultimate doom. The city became a permanent monument to the ocean's moral authority. Port Royal's vaults are now a collection of haunted artifacts, where the atmosphere of betrayal, greed and sudden death are perfectly preserved by the silt. The city is a unique contrast to the ancient sunken cities, a recent historical horror that proves the ocean is an active, modern participant in the systematic erasure of civilizations. The deep claim the wicked city as its own, an answer to the central question. The bioluminescent lures of the deep beyond the anglerfish, A terrifying majority of deep-sea life uses bioluminescence, a cold internal light, not for vision but for predatory purposes, luring, confusing, or signalling in the absolute darkness. This universal biological adaptation suggests that the ocean's deep zone is a world of constant, silent, predatory deception, where light is never a source of comfort but a signal of impending absolute doom. The colours of this light, often blues, greens, and sometimes a strange sickly red, are themselves a biological symbolic imagery of the abyss's nature. This is a world where all communication, all attraction, and all life is conducted through a system of cold, internal illumination that draws the victim in. The lights are the biological extension of the hidden horrors, turning life itself into a bait. This phenomenon serves as a perfect paradox for the central question. The light in the dark is not salvation. It is the most terrifying trap. The bioluminescence is the dark force's most subtle systemic tool, a reminder that the deep's power lies in its ability to corrupt the most fundamental elements of the surface world, turning light, the symbol of life, into a perfect, silent instrument of death. The graveyard of the Atlantic and coastal vengeance. The historical stretch of water off the Outer Banks of North Carolina, known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic, has claimed thousands of ships, from colonial-era vessels to World War II U-boats. The sheer volume of wrecks, all clustered in a relatively small geographical area, suggests a localized geographical curse, a place where the ocean's power is concentrated and utterly unforgiving. The cause is a lethal combination of shifting sandbars, violent storms, and the collision of the cold Labrador Current and the warm Gulf Stream, creating unpredictable sudden turbulence. This confluence of extreme natural forces is a geographical analogy for the lurking force, suggesting a specific geographical nexus where the ocean's destructive power is consistently and violently manifest. The Graveyard of the Atlantic is a perfect historical repetition of the sea boggart's vengeance on a massive scale. The thousands of wrecks are a collection of haunted artifacts, constantly feeding the history of terror in the region. It is a terrifying, permanent answer to the central question, proving that the dark force has chosen physical locations on Earth to act as permanent, tireless agents of human destruction and historical erasure. The sea chests of the drowned sailors. Historical accounts of shipwrecks often describe the finding of a drowned sailor's personal sea chest, recovered from the wreckage or washed up on shore. These chests, often locked, contained a complete preserved microcosm of the sailor's life. Letters, trinkets, coins, and locks of hair. These are not merely artifacts, they are deeply personal, small-scale haunted artifacts that carry the chilling silence of the drowned. The horror is the contrast between the violence of the death and the perfect preservation of the intimate personal effects within the chest. They represent a life instantly truncated, a story sealed and locked forever by the ocean. To open one is to be an unwitting participant in a chilling mystery reveal, the final, personal evidence of a life swallowed whole by the deep, a life ended by the lurking force. The sea chest is a powerful symbolic imagery of the central question on a human scale. It is a tiny, perfect crypt, proving that the ocean preserves not just knowledge and massive structures, but the most minute, intimate details of human loss. The chest's weight and locked nature is an analogy for the ocean's ultimate unforgiving security system. What it claims, it rarely ever truly releases. The colossal squid and the abyssal arms. The colossal squid, Mesonychoteuthis hamiltoni, is a verified biological horror, far larger and more terrifying than the giant squid, with eyes the size of dinner plates and massive sharp hooks on its tentacles. Its immense size is only inferred from the scars found on deep-diving whales and rare specimen captures, proving that a creature of this scale rules the crushing depths, remaining largely unseen and unchallenged. The historical reality of this creature gives chilling credence to the ancient myths of the kraken and other deep-sea monsters, suggesting that the human imagination, in this case, was not inventing but dimly perceiving a terrifying truth. The colossal squid is the silent, living repetition of the hidden horrors of the deep, a creature so perfectly adapted to its environment that its existence is a constant dark challenge to surface-world biology. The colossal squid is biological foreshadowing of what else the ocean could be hiding, a creature that is simply too large and too deep to be fully classified. It serves the lurking force by being a physical, monstrous embodiment of the symbolic imagery of the deep's power. It is a reminder that the ocean's life forms are not merely strange, they are immense, silent, and potentially predatory on a scale that defies history. The lost city of Dwarka and Lord Krishna's curse. The ancient Indian city of Dwarka, traditionally believed to be the capital of Lord Krishna, is said to have been swallowed by the sea after Krishna's death, a massive mythological act of historical erasure. While this is a legend, marine archaeologists have found extensive submerged ruins off the coast of Gujarat that align with the stories, suggesting the myth is anchored in a genuine, catastrophic historical flood event. The religious analogy is powerful. The city's destruction was an act of divine aquatic judgment, a catastrophic ending to an entire era of human life. The submerged ruins, with their massive stone blocks and ancient structures, are a repetition of the Yonaguni and Ys-type horror, suggesting that the phenomenon of advanced civilization vanishing under the waves is a global, recurring event enacted by a powerful force. Dwarka's ruins serve as a profound symbolic imagery of the ocean's ultimate power over human faith and culture. The submerged city is a monumental haunted artifact that holds the spiritual and historical weight of an entire subcontinent's lost history. The water acts as the final arbiter of fate, proving the depth of the dark force's power to erase even the most sacred historical narratives, the ship graveyards of the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea, a massive calm area in the middle of the North Atlantic defined by large floating mats of sargassum weed, is historically linked to the chilling phenomenon of ship graveyards. For centuries, ships were often becalmed in the weed, slowly rotting, becoming silent. Visible tombs that often contain the skeletal remains of crews who starved waiting for a wind that never came. This geographical feature is the ultimate paradox of the ocean's horror. A calm, seemingly peaceful area that kills with silence and stasis, rather than violence and storm. The Sargasso Sea acts as a massive, deliberate trap, an oceanic spider's web woven by the deep. The terror is the slow, inevitable realization that you are stranded in a silent, beautiful green graveyard, a perfect sensory immersion into despair. The Sargasso Sea is a geographical symbolic imagery of the lurking force's patience and methodical cruelty. The floating mats of seaweed are a sinister, natural, eerie symbol of the deep's ability to halt human progress and simply wait for the consequence to be total historical erasure. It is a slow, silent, and utterly complete answer to the central question, showing the power of stasis over violence. The black box is pinging, and the near misses before a black box signal dies forever. It sends out a faint ping, a rhythmic artificial heartbeat in the immense silence of the deep. The intense search efforts for these signals represent humanity's desperate attempt to retrieve the historical truth before the ocean fully silences it. The chilling part is the fact that many signals simply stop, often days or hours before the source is located, a perfect contrast between silence and revelation. The moments when a search team realizes they are following a ping that has suddenly ceased are moments of profound historical terror. The abyss has won the race, claiming the final piece of evidence. This is a subtle, agonizing repetition of the lurking force's power to maintain the open loop, allowing hope to exist only to brutally extinguish it in the final moment of the search. The final ping is a crucial haunted artifact and a recurring auditory motif in the series, a tiny human sound battling the massive crushing silence of the deep. It is a terrifying final analogy for the central question, a desperate fading signal of human life against an eternal overwhelming darkness. The ocean's victory is marked by that final, terrifying silence after the last ping dies. The myth of the lost continent of Atlantis' curse Atlantis is the ultimate historical mystery, a perfect symbolic imagery of the ocean's power to swallow civilization whole. While likely mythological, the consistency of the tale across cultures suggests a primordial memory of a great advanced city that was instantly obliterated by water. The horror is not the sinking, but the reason, often cited as the Atlanteans' hubris and moral corruption, a direct provocation of the divine or elemental power. The Atlantean demise is the foundational horror, a cultural foreshadowing of all subsequent sunken cities. It is the perfect story of the dark force using the ocean as a judge, an all-consuming weapon against human pride and technological advancement. The legend ensures the persistence of fear across time, reminding every subsequent civilization that no matter how sophisticated, the deep remains the final, absolute arbiter of human fate. The myth's terrifying lesson is a direct answer to the central question. The dark force may have required the complete, immediate erasure of an entire technological epoch because they discovered something they shouldn't have, or built something that threatened the abyss. Atlantis remains a colossal unseen haunted artifact, the memory of which is a constant terrifying threat to the world above the waves. The deep-sea isopods, the ultimate scavengers, giant. Deep-sea isopods are massive, horrifyingly large relatives of the common woodlouse, often exceeding a foot in length. They are the vacuum cleaners of the abyssal plain, perfectly adapted to feast on the massive carcasses, whales, squid, or humans that rain down from the surface. Their function is terrifyingly efficient, to erase the large biological remnants of the surface world's life, ensuring the deep silence is maintained. These creatures are a biological analogy for the methodical clean-up crew of the lurking force. They wait in the dark, silent, crushing pressure, ready to dissolve all biological evidence of surface life that dares to breach their domain. The horror of the deep is not just the predator, it is the scavenger, the patient, repulsive cleaner that ensures nothing living remains whole or recognizable in the final grave. The isopod is a profound contrast to the elegance of surface life, a testament to the dark, functional biology of the deep. It is a biological, eerie symbol of the absolute recycling system of the abyss, proving that the ocean not only kills, but systematically dismantles and consumes the evidence. They are the patient, silent, multi-legged answer to the central question. What ensures that no one who drowns ever truly returns? The Kaz-2 and the perfect absence. The yacht Kaz-2 was found drifting off the coast of Australia in 2008, a modern, chilling repetition of the Mary Celeste horror. The engine was running, a laptop was on, and a table was set for lunch, yet the three-man crew had vanished completely, leaving no trace of a struggle or foul play. The only unnerving sign was a sail that was shredded and flapping in the wind, despite the boat being otherwise seaworthy. The instantaneous, perfect disappearance of three grown men from a fully functional vessel in calm waters defies all logic and forensic investigation. The mystery reveal is the sheer lack of evidence, a perfect, silent act of historical erasure enacted upon a contemporary vessel. The Kaz-2 became a floating symbolic imagery of the dark force's ability to claim human life in the most casual, unsettling manner, leaving only questions. The Kaz-2 is a chilling confirmation that the lurked force's power is not relegated to ancient history or the Bermuda Triangle. It is a pervasive modern horror, a direct answer to the central question regarding the persistence of fear across time. The yacht's eerie, empty decks are a perfect contemporary example of the ocean, creating an ultimate unanswerable open loop in the historical record. The terrifying anatomy of the barrel-leaf fish. The barrel-leaf fish, Macropinna microstoma, is a biological oddity that truly looks alien, possessing a transparent, fluid-filled head through which its two massive emerald green eyes look upwards. This allows the fish to see the silhouette of its prey directly above it in the dim residual light of the twilight zone. It is a living deep-sea submarine with built-in green-tinted viewing ports. The horror is its transparent head, the very concept of an animal whose skull is a perfect, water-filled window to its internal organs. It is a biological contrast to the secretive nature of the deep, a creature that is simultaneously hiding in the darkness, yet displaying its deepest anatomy for all to see. This creature is a visual manifestation of the hidden horrors that defy all biological expectation. The barrel-leaf fish is a biological, eerie symbol of the terrifying extremes of adaptation in the deep, showing that the dark force allows life to evolve in utterly alien, horrifying ways. It is a testament to the fact that the ocean's life is fundamentally divorced from the light-driven principles of the surface, a silent, staring biological answer to the central question of the lurking shadow's design. The sunken bells of the lost city of Lyonesse. The Arthurian legend of Lyonesse tells of a vast, wealthy land between Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that was instantly submerged in a single night due to a massive flood. Like Yais, the enduring folklore insists that on silent, misty days, the faint, muffled sound of the city's bells can still be heard tolling from beneath the waves, a profound historical auditory haunting. The horror of Lyonesse is auditory repetition. The sound of the bells is the whispers of ancient fears, the final lingering echo of a drowned populace. It suggests that the city is not merely a ruin, but a massive haunted artifact whose existence is marked by a sound that links the physical deep to the emotional suffering of the past. The muffled tolling is the sound of history trapped forever under the ocean's weight. Lyonesse serves as a profound symbolic imagery of the central question's theme of supernatural influence, a cultural memory of a force that wipes entire landmasses off the map. The bells are the dark force's chosen communication, a sound that is both a memory and a warning, a terrifying historical foreshadowing that the wave can strike again, and the silence it leaves behind will only be broken by the tolling of the past's final doom, the ancient terrors of the Lusca. In Caribbean folklore, the Lusca is a massive, highly aggressive octopus-like creature, said to inhabit blue holes and deep coastal trenches, capable of dragging down entire boats. This creature is a biological analogy for the localized physical power of the deep. It is a historical repetition of the Kraken myth, localized to the region where many unexplained ship disappearances occur. The horrifying aspect of the Lusca is its rumoured intelligence and ability to use the blue holes, deep, vertical underwater caves that plunge into the earth, as hunting blinds and permanent lairs. The belief that an ancient, massive cephalopod is using the very geography of the ocean floor to conduct its hunts creates a chilling sensory immersion into the predatory nature of the ocean. The Lusca is a chillingly specific answer to the central question of what lurks. It is a mythical creature whose existence is constantly reinforced by the unexplained events in its reputed hunting grounds, a monstrous symbolic imagery of the Caribbean's hidden horrors. It represents the deep's power to create monstrous life that uses the earth itself as a permanent deadly trap. The submerged forests of the Ice Age. Along coastlines worldwide, deep-sea dredging and low-tide events occasionally reveal the skeletal remains of vast ancient forests, massive tree stumps and roots perfectly preserved in the mud. These are the historical remnants of entire ecosystems that were drowned by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age, a terrifying, tangible reminder of the ocean's planetary scale transformation power. The horror is the realization that where you now sail, a dense, thriving forest once stood, a historical contrast between silence and revelation. To touch the bark of a submerged tree is to physically connect with an epoch that was completely, systematically erased by the relentless, encroaching power of the water. The trees are a unique kind of haunted artifact, the literal fossilized memory of the drowning of the land. The submerged forests are a vast ecological foreshadowing of the ocean's ultimate, inevitable victory over the land, a terrifying answer to the central question. They prove the sea is not only a destroyer of human structures, but an active, permanent changer of the planet's very surface. The silent, ancient roots are a chilling, eerie symbol of the deep's power to reclaim everything. The Bermuda Triangle's watery mines. Historical maritime accounts from the Bermuda Triangle often speak of an unnerving phenomenon where ships would suddenly strike an invisible obstacle in the open sea, an impact violent enough to breach the hull, yet no physical object was ever observed. These are the historical hidden horrors, unseen obstacles that simply materialize to enact a localized act of sabotage. The terrifying theory is that these impacts are caused by deep-sea disturbances, massive, sudden releases of methane gas from the seafloor. The gas violently bursts to the surface, creating a temporary, massive vacuum of water that instantly removes the ship's buoyancy and causes it to plunge. This is a terrifying, localized geological trap that defies the surface world's logic. This phenomenon acts as a geological paradox. The water is both the support and the sudden executioner. The watery mines are the lurking force's way of using the Earth's own volatile energy to enact the historical erasure, a powerful environmental analogy for its ultimate control. The Bermuda Triangle is not just a cursed space. It is a live, unstable geological weapon, serving the central question's theme of systematic destruction. The siren's song and the historical magnetism. The historical legend of the sirens, beautiful female figures whose irresistible songs lured sailors to their death on the rocks, is a profound repetition of the ocean's power of deception. These tales are often set near historically treacherous rocky coastlines that possessed a localized, intense magnetic pull, suggesting the siren's song was a mythical interpretation of a genuine localized magnetic anomaly. The horror of the siren is the sensory immersion into a beautiful yet fatal deception. The song is the mythical manifestation of the magnetic field, an unseen, powerful, localized force that causes navigation to fail, drawing the ship inexorably toward its doom. The sailors did not choose to die. They were compelled by a power they could not understand, a terrifying historical rhetorical reenactment of a doomed approach. The siren's song is the whispers of ancient fears embodied, a symbol of the dark force's ability to corrupt and weaponize the very senses of human beings. It serves as a powerful symbolic imagery of the ocean's ultimate trick, to use beauty to conceal the absolute horror of the jagged, unseen rocks below. The song is a historical manifestation of the ultimate localized curse. The lost World War II gold and the U-boat graveyard. During World War II, countless Axis and Allied ships were sunk carrying immense quantities of gold, artwork and historical artifacts that now lie scattered across the Atlantic seabed. These wrecks are vast collections of haunted artifacts, with the gold often resting inside the cramped metallic coffins of U-boats perfectly sealed by the deep. This treasure is a material monument to global historical warfare. The horror is that many of these U-boats and transports were sunk by unknown causes, or with their crews still inside, making the salvage operations a moral and historical nightmare. The gold is cursed, intrinsically tied to the terror of war and the final silent deaths of hundreds of men. This is a modern repetition of the Atocha curse, where the sea claims both the treasure and the life force. The U-boat graveyard serves as a profound foreshadowing of future conflict, a chilling reminder that the deep will always swallow the material evidence of human aggression. The submerged gold is a powerful symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to appropriate the relics of human conflict, sealing them away as historical trophies. The deep is the final silent museum of man's greatest, most destructive failures. The terrifying anatomy of the gulper eel. The gulper eel, Eurypharynx pleconoides, is a biological horror perfectly adapted to the food scarcity of the deep, possessing a mouth so massive that it can literally unhinge and swallow prey many times its own size. Its body is mostly a giant mouth and a massive stomach, with a small whip-like tail that ends in a bioluminescent lure. It is a terrifying, living, expanding black void. The horror is its appearance, a featureless, immense, grotesque throat with a tiny, fragile body attached. It is a biological, eerie symbol of pure, unconstrained consumption, a perfect metaphor for the deep itself. The creature is a visual manifestation of the lurked force's ultimate hunger, an entity that is designed to swallow anything that crosses its path, regardless of size. The gulper eel is a chilling biological contrast to the complexity of surface life, a proof that the abyss breeds functional, monstrous forms. This creature answers the central question by showing the efficiency of darkness. Life here is stripped down to the single, ultimate purpose of consumption. Its massive, terrifying maw is the ultimate symbolic imagery of the ocean's insatiable, permanent appetite for the surface world. The curse of the pearl and oceanic vengeance. Throughout history, large, exceptionally rare pearls have often been associated with tragedy, murder, or sudden misfortune for their owners. The most infamous examples are the La Peregrina and the Regent Pearl, both historically linked to bloodshed, betrayal, and the downfall of royal families. This suggests the pearls themselves, organic products of the ocean, are haunted artifacts that carry the deep's curse. The horror is the analogy that the ocean imbues its most beautiful creations with its darkest energy, a deliberate corruption of the natural world. The pearls are a beautiful, seductive lie, a profound contrast to the misfortune they invariably bring. They are the deep's way of touching the surface world with a terrible, long-lasting vengeance that often takes decades to fully manifest. The Curse of the Pearl is a direct answer to the central question regarding the influence of the dark force, demonstrating its ability to use small material objects to enact a widespread historical terror. The deep is a source of wealth, but that wealth comes at a fatal symbolic price, ensuring that the persistence of fear across time is tied to human greed and the objects we covet. The unsolved vanishing of the witchcraft. The cabin cruiser. Witchcraft vanished in 1967 in the Bermuda Triangle region, a historical repetition of the triangle's absolute silent erasure. The captain made a distress call stating his boat had hit something and needed a tow, but when the Coast Guard arrived just 19 minutes later, they found nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no oil slick, and no crew. The terrifying mystery reveal is the speed and completeness of the disappearance. The Witchcraft and its two occupants were swallowed in a matter of minutes by a localized force so powerful it defied the basic principles of physics, an instantaneous act of historical erasure. The event suggests the lurked force has the ability to open and close a void in the space-time continuum at will. The Witchcraft is a haunting modern-day rhetorical reenactment of a doomed final communication that never reached safety. It serves as a direct, chilling answer to the central question, proving that the dark force can act with lightning speed and absolute surgical precision, leaving behind only the historical record of a frantic, final, unanswered whisper into the open air. The historical accounts of the gloomfish. In ancient texts from various Mediterranean and Northern European cultures, there are consistent descriptions of a gloomfish or shadow eater, a deep-sea creature that emitted an oppressive visible cloud of black ink or substance, which was believed to be a concentration of pure melancholy or ill will. The sighting of this creature was a profound foreshadowing of misfortune or a sudden unexplained illness. The horror is the symbolic imagery that the deep can produce a creature that weaponizes a psychic or emotional darkness. It is a biological analogy for the lurking force, suggesting that the abyss can literally manifest psychological terror in a physical form. The gloomfish is the perfect hunter of the soul, using the emotional landscape of humanity to execute the dark force's purpose. The gloomfish, whether mythical or a historical misinterpretation of a deep-sea squid's ink defense, serves as a powerful, eerie symbol of the supernatural influences that the series explores. It is a reminder that the ocean's horrors are not limited to the body, but actively target the mind, a silent psychological answer to the central question of the deep's destructive intelligence. The deep-sea brine pools, the lakes of doom. Deep-sea brine pools are unique, hypersaline lakes that exist on the ocean floor, where the water is so dense and toxic that life cannot survive within them. These are literal underwater lakes of poison, with sharp, visible shores, sometimes called lakes of doom. Any creature that swims into the brine pool instantly dies, their remains often sinking to the bottom of the toxic water. The horror is the profound contrast between the liquid above and the lethal liquid below, a literal double drowning where the deep contains its own smaller, more concentrated death traps. They are a geographical symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to create localized zones of absolute instantaneous biological destruction, a perfect, hidden, toxic environment on the ocean floor. These brine pools are a profound geological paradox, a contained body of water that acts as a solid, permanent barrier to life. They are a physical answer to the central question, proving that the ocean actively creates and guards localized pockets of pure chemical horror. The toxic pools are the deep's way of ensuring that death is not just a passing event, but a permanent, suffocating chemical state. The SS Valencia and the Wreck of the Dead. The shipwreck of the SS Valencia in 1906, off the treacherous coast of Vancouver Island, was a maritime disaster that became a horrific historical haunting. The ship sank in an inaccessible area, and survivors reported seeing lifeboats capsizing in the heavy surf, leaving dozens to drown within sight of the shore. The death toll was immense, and the wreck soon became a legendary haunted artifact. The horror began years after the sinking, when local sailors and coastal guards reported repeatedly seeing a ghost ship resembling the Valencia, often sailing directly toward the rocks. This is a terrifying, localized repetition of the Flying Dutchman myth, suggesting the shipwreck created a powerful, geographically bound spiritual vortex, a permanent scar on the historical record of the coastline. The Valencia is a powerful symbolic imagery of the dark force's ability to maintain a historical haunting, using the energy of the mass drowning to power its terrifying illusion. The ghost ship is a visual, rhetorical reenactment of the final moments of panic, forced to sail forever on the currents of historical trauma. The wreck is a chilling answer to the central question, showing the power of the deep to use the dead as its eternal messengers. The Viking submarine and the dead crewman. The Soviet Viking-class submarine, which sank off the coast of Ireland in 1970, became a site of historical horror. When the wreck was eventually explored, divers found the remains of the crewmen perfectly preserved by the cold water. The most unsettling detail was that some crewmen were found seated, with their hands clutching their mouths, a chilling sign of silent internal struggle. The silent terror suggests the crew died from a sudden massive rush of toxic gas, or a complete silent loss of oxygen, a sudden absolute suffocation that left them frozen in a gesture of agonizing final breathlessness. This is a profound sensory immersion into the terror of drowning within a sealed environment, a horrifying contrast to the violence of a typical shipwreck. The Viking submarine is a modern, metallic, haunted artifact, a perfect symbol of human technology, becoming a permanent, unyielding crypt for its creators. The remains, sealed in the metal, serve as a direct answer to the central question, proving the deep's power to maintain the persistence of fear across time, leaving the bodies as permanent, silent witnesses to their final, internal, unrecorded struggle. The whispering whirlpools of the coastline throughout history, countless coastal whirlpools, much smaller than the maelstrom but equally volatile, have been linked to local legends of creatures or spirits that reside beneath them. These are localized, geographical curses, spots where the water's violent rotation creates a terrifying, localized, audible phenomenon. A deep, roaring sound that was historically interpreted as the whispers of ancient fears. The terror of these small whirlpools is their immediacy. They appear suddenly near the shore, dragging small boats or unsuspecting swimmers down into their cold, swirling centre, a physical manifestation of the dark force's playful cruelty. This is a chilling analogy for the localized systemic power that the lurking force exerts, a perfect, inescapable, rotational trap set close to the surface world. These localized whirlpools are a geographical eerie symbol of the endless cyclical nature of doom that the ocean enacts upon human life. They're a terrifying open loop to the deep, a constant active reminder that even the shallow water near the shore is no protection from the rotational sucking power of the abyss. The whirlpool is the dark force's smallest yet most accessible portal to doom. The lost wrecks of the gold rush era, the ocean floor off the coast of California and Central America is littered with the wrecks of ships from the gold rush era, carrying vast fortunes that sank in storms or through sabotage. These wrecks are historically significant for the sheer volume of wealth lost, but the true horror is the number of bodies often sealed within the hulls, drowning alongside their fortune. The gold and silver recovered from these wrecks are deeply haunted artifacts, intrinsically tied to the greed, betrayal, and sudden, violent death of the hopeful miners. The historical accounts of the storms that claim these vessels often describe an unnatural, sudden fury, suggesting the ocean itself was acting as a moral arbiter, claiming the ill-gotten wealth for its own silent vaults. The Gold Rush wrecks are a profound repetition of the curse of the pearl and the Atosha treasure, a clear answer to the central question regarding the dark force's systematic use of human greed. The wrecks are a chilling symbolic imagery of the ultimate vanity of material wealth. The sea treats gold and human life with equal, absolute indifference, swallowing both into the permanent silence of the deep. The terrifying anatomy of the black swallower. The black swallower, Chiasmodon niger, is a small black deep-sea fish with a horrifying capability. Its stomach can distend enormously, allowing it to consume and digest fish 10 times its own mass. This creature often dies after a massive meal, as the expanding prey bursts its own internal organs, a biological paradox of predatory success leading to instantaneous self-destruction. The horror is the creature's existence as a perfect metaphor for unconstrained hunger and self-defeating ambition. It is a biological analogy for the dark force's power, a system of consumption so absolute that it eventually leads to internal destruction, a self-correcting organism of pure predation. The black swallower is the living, silent proof that the deep promotes extremes of survival that are fundamentally terrifying. This small black creature is a chilling biological eerie symbol of the central question's theme of hidden horrors. Its existence proves that the abyss breeds not only large monsters, but small, highly efficient and terrifyingly grotesque predators that operate under a design of pure, biological nihilism. Its final act of self-destruction is a profound contrast to the persistence of life, an ultimate biological horror. The deep-sea ship's bells as auditory curses. Historically, a ship's bell was considered its soul, often inscribed with the ship's name and present for all major ceremonies. When a ship sank, the bell was often the final, most prized haunted artifact to be recovered. The horror is the historical belief that if the bell was not recovered, its tolling could still be heard underwater during storms, the ship's soul crying out for its lost crew. The historical repetition of the sunken bell's motif, from Yis to Lyonesse, suggests a universal ancient fear of the ocean retaining the spirit of the lost vessel. The bell is the audible whispers of ancient fears, a physical object imbued with the auditory trauma of the sinking. Its continued ringing is the dark force's way of ensuring the historical memory of the disaster is never allowed to fade. The ship's bell is a chilling symbolic imagery of the central question, a small metallic object that serves as a permanent anchor for the tragedy. When the deep keeps the bell, it keeps the ship's soul, maintaining an open loop to the human suffering. The recovery of the bell is a moment of profound mystery reveal, but its absence is a declaration of the ocean's absolute spiritual victory. The ancient knowledge of the world serpent, the Norse myth of Jörmungandr, the world serpent, which is so massive it encircles the entire earth, biting its own tail, is a profound expression of ancient fears. This myth is not a simple monster tale. It is a cosmological analogy for the ocean itself, a vast, encompassing, boundary-setting entity that is both a prison and a wall, holding back the chaos of the abyss. The horror is the foreshadowing that if the serpent ever releases its tail, the world will instantly sink into a flood of cosmic chaos, the final Ragnarok. This belief is a historical repetition of the Atlantis and Wiss-type flood myths on a cosmic scale, suggesting a universal, shared, historical, cultural memory of an imminent, absolute flood-based apocalypse. The world serpent is the ultimate symbolic imagery of the lurking force, a massive, global, eerie symbol of the ocean's untamed, destructive power. The myth is a chilling answer to the central question, suggesting that the dark force is not merely an entity in the water, but the very boundary of the earth itself, holding the world hostage to its massive, eternal, and terrifying power. The ocean's collection of prehistoric artifacts. The constant dredging and deep-sea trawling operations often bring up ancient prehistoric stone tools, carved bones, and even fossilized human remains that date back far beyond recorded history. These artifacts are historical remnants of people who lived on land that is now submerged, a constant material reminder that the coastline is not fixed and that entire epochs are lost to the deep. The horror is the contrast between the pristine condition of these artifacts and the crushing, dark environment they were recovered from. They are true haunted artifacts, tangible proof of the ocean's planetary scale historical erasure. The discovery of a perfect ancient axe head from a time before known history creates a profound mystery, reveal about the age of human civilization. These prehistoric artifacts are an unsettling answer to the central question, proving that the deep is a massive, uncatalogued crypt of human prehistory, a perfect repository for the hidden horrors. The constant yielding of ancient human tools to the surface is the deep's way of whispering that the current civilization is only a temporary layer on a massive submerged historical canvas, doomed to be washed away. The deep-sea coffin ship Teignmouth Electron. In 1969, the Trimaran Teignmouth Electron was found drifting perfectly intact, but completely abandoned in the mid-Atlantic, a historical repetition of the ghost ship phenomenon. The solo sailor Donald Crowhurst had been circling the globe, sending fraudulent radio reports, and the logbook found on board showed his descent into madness, filled with cryptic notes about an act of God. The horror is not just the disappearance, but the preserved descent into insanity. The logbook is a massive, terrifying, haunted artifact that documents a man's mind being systematically destroyed by the crushing psychological pressure of isolation and the ocean's endless silence. The rhetorical reenactment of his final doomed hours is written in the log, suggesting the ocean actively participated in his mental collapse. The Teignmouth electron is a profound symbolic imagery of the central question's theme of psychological destruction. The empty boat is a terrifying open loop that proves the deep's power to not just drown the body, but to first shatter the mind with its immense existential silence. The true horror of the lurked force is its ability to turn the human mind against itself. The biological horror of the Phronima amphipod. The Phronima amphipod is a small, deep-sea creature that is a biological analogy for pure parasitic horror. The female hunts a gelatinous barrel-shaped tunicate, kills the animal, then hollows out its body to create a perfect transparent barrel or coffin where she lives and lays her eggs. She then swims around, pushing her living coffin through the abyss. The horror is the sheer biological ingenuity of the act, a creature that literally creates a perfect, mobile, transparent tomb from its victim's body. This is a profound sensory immersion into the brutal, functional efficiency of the deep-sea food chain, where life is sustained by a direct, horrifying act of parasitic murder and subsequent appropriation of the victim's remains. The Phronima is a biological, eerie symbol of the ultimate fate of the drowned, not just death, but appropriation and perfect consumption by the abyss's own systems. This creature answers the central question by showing that the dark force allows life to thrive by turning the remnants of death into a sustainable, horrifying cradle. The transparent coffin is the deep's ultimate natural haunted artifact. The historical fear of terrors of the fog. Historically, sailors reported that thick coastal fog, smur, often brought with it an unnerving silence, but also a sensation of being watched or followed by unseen entities. The terrors of the fog. This fear was not of the loss of sight, but the sudden, terrifying clarity of hearing the unsettling sounds within the fog, unnatural rhythmic splashes, heavy unseen breathing or muffled demonic laughter. This is a chilling sensory immersion into the ocean's psychological warfare, a historical repetition of the siren's song, where the sensory deprivation of the fog is paired with a heightened, terrifying clarity of sound. The fog is a deliberate tool of the lurking force, a temporary movable veil that allows its agents to operate unseen and to use sound to induce panic and misdirection. The terrors of the fog are the whispers of ancient fears personified, a constant reminder that the ocean's power extends beyond the water itself, a terrifying foreshadowing of the electronic fog of the Bermuda Triangle. The fog is the dark force's way of creating a localized, mobile, absolute void, a terrifying answer to the central question of the supernatural influences that aid in historical erasure. The curse of the Hope Diamond and the sea's gemstones. The Hope Diamond, a historical haunted artifact of immense value and terrible fortune, is often linked to the myth of a massive original blue diamond lost at sea in the 17th century. This suggests the infamous diamond is merely a fragment of an even larger cursed gem that the ocean still holds, a mother stone of ill fortune waiting in the deep. The horror is the analogy that the ocean is the ultimate source of the world's cursed artifacts, a massive vault of gems imbued with the dark force's energy. The Hope Diamond's history of madness, murder and suicide is a tangible repetition of the ocean's curse on material greed. The sea is the purveyor of beautiful, high-value destruction, its horrors manifesting through the objects it yields. The lost Mother Diamond is the ultimate symbolic imagery of the central question's theme of hidden horrors, a terrifying concentration of historical curse waiting in the abyss. It reinforces the idea that the lurking force uses human desire for material wealth to enact its long-term vengeance, turning the ocean's treasures into an instrument of profound human-scale doom. The deep-sea trench as the Earth's scar. The deepest parts of the ocean, the trenches, are formed by plate tectonics, the violent, massive collision of the Earth's crust, making them geological scars of planetary-scale violence. These trenches are the absolute final destination for everything that sinks, a permanent, crushing prison of geological proportions. They are the ultimate physical manifestation of the dark force's chosen domain. The horror is the immense, unimaginable pressure within these trenches, capable of instantly crushing any man-made object that descends without specialized protection. This pressure is a natural, unyielding force that is a profound contrast to the fragile existence of the surface world. The trenches are historical evidence of the Earth's most violent deep-time events, preserved in absolute darkness. The trenches are a geographical eerie symbol and a direct answer to the central question regarding the deep's power. They are an open loop to a planetary past of immense, violent forces, a permanent uncrossable boundary between the surface and the absolute abyss. The deep-sea trench is not just a geological feature. It is the physical manifestation of the dark force's eternal, unyielding finality. The ship's figurehead and the curse of the gaze. Historically, the figurehead, the carved figure mounted on the bow of a ship, was believed to be the vessel's spirit, protecting it from storms and guiding it through the waves. The horror lies in the historical belief that if a ship sank, the figurehead, if recovered, became a powerful haunted artifact that carried the curse of the ship's final doom, its eyes eternally fixed on the scene of the tragedy. In many maritime cultures, it was believed the figurehead's preserved gaze held the memory of the sinking, a frightening carved symbolic imagery of the final moments of panic. Displaying a recovered figurehead was seen as inviting the ghost of the ship and the persistence of fear across time into your home, a constant silent witness to the terrible power of the deep. The figurehead is a unique analogy for the dark force's ability to use human art and spiritual belief to maintain its historical haunting. The carved face is a rhetorical reenactment of the final terror, a physical piece of evidence that connects the living world to the silent, watery grave. The figurehead is the ocean's way of ensuring its victory is always visibly, silently remembered. The terrifying anatomy of the hairy anglerfish. The hairy anglerfish, Colophrene plagica, is a biological horror that takes the terror of the deep to a new level. It is covered in long, glowing, filamentous hairs that act as an expansive, terrifying net of cold light, dramatically expanding the lure's reach. It is a biological metaphor for the deep's universal trap, a vast, delicate, glowing web of doom. The horror is the sheer aesthetic of the creature, a small, monstrous body surrounded by a cloud of beautiful, deadly, cold light. This is a profound contrast between silence and revelation, where the light reveals a trap, not a salvation. It is a terrifying, living, symbolic imagery of the deep's power to corrupt beauty into an instrument of silent, absolute predation. The hairy anglerfish is a biological, eerie symbol of the central question, showing the dark force's ingenuity in creating highly evolved systemic traps in the absolute darkness. Its existence proves that the deep is not static. It is an active, terrifying ecosystem where life is a constant, subtle, visually stunning form of death, an ultimate living answer to the persistent mystery. The blood-stained relics of the Sultana. The sinking of the SS, Sultana in 1865, carrying thousands of Union prisoners of war, remains the worst maritime disaster in US history, with over 1,800 people killed. The historical relics recovered, uniform buttons, personal letters, and fragmented medical supplies, are all deeply haunted artifacts, intrinsically tied to the mass drowning and the immense suffering of the final hours. The horror is the repetition of historical trauma, the explosion of the boilers, the fire, and the final mass drowning of men who had survived years of war only to die in a catastrophic human-made disaster. The river itself became a massive temporary graveyard. This is a chilling rhetorical reenactment of a doomed final escape from one horror into a far greater one. The Sultana's relics serve as a profound symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to use human incompetence and historical timing to its ultimate advantage. The recovered artifacts are a direct answer to the central question, proving that the deepest, most concentrated historical horrors are often those that occur in the liminal space between war and peace, on the river's path to the waiting sea. The historical fear of the Abaya, Melanesian demon. In Melanesian folklore, the Abaya is a colossal, serpentine, eel-like creature believed to live in deep lakes and ocean trenches, acting as a possessive guardian of the water. The myth states that if anyone removes a fish from its water, the Abaya will cause the entire lake or ocean area to flood catastrophically, a localized, immediate act of historical revenge and erasure. The horror is the analogy of the Abaya as the physical manifestation of the lurked force's claim over the deep's resources. The myth is a powerful foreshadowing of the Wise and Atlantis catastrophes on a smaller, localized scale, suggesting that the ocean's power is tied to an immense, intelligent, possessive consciousness that demands absolute respect and retribution. The Abaya myth is a cultural eerie symbol of the central question, showing the universal, persistent fear of a gigantic, predatory, aquatic intelligence. It proves that ancient people across the globe understood the power of the water to suddenly, violently erase their history if its unspoken, terrible laws were violated. The Abaya is the dark force's local warden of the deep, the Beichimo and the Eternal Open Loop. The SS Beichimo is a modern Arctic ghost ship, a historical repetition of the Mary Celeste horror on a massive scale. Trapped in ice in 1931, the crew abandoned it, but over the next 4 decades, the fully loaded cargo ship was repeatedly sighted, adrift, seaworthy, and completely empty across the remote Arctic waters, often miles from where it was last seen. The horror is the ship's absolute refusal to sink. It became an immortal, mechanical symbolic imagery of the dark force's power to maintain a permanent, unanswerable open loop. The ship is a perfect, enduring historical mystery, suggesting the ocean, for its own unknown reasons, chose to keep the vessel floating as a perpetual, ghostly warning to all who dare to navigate the Arctic isolation. The Beichimo's perpetual wandering is a chilling answer to the central question regarding the supernatural influence of the deep. It is a massive, technological haunted artifact that the lurking force has claimed but refuses to sink, turning it into a perpetual, mobile, unsettling historical monument. The ship sails on, a perfect, empty, silent echo of human abandonment. The deep-sea snow and the rain of death. In the deep abyssal zone, there is a constant, slow, gentle rain of organic debris, dead organisms, waste, and shedding skin that constantly drifts down from the surface world. This phenomenon is known as marine snow. The horror is that this beautiful, quiet snowfall is literally a constant, slow, historical rain of death that feeds the biological hidden horrors below. This is a profound contrast to the purity of surface snow. The deep's version is a silent, gentle fall of decomposing matter, the constant byproduct of the surface world's dying life force. This quiet, perpetual rain is a terrifying sensory immersion into the deep's absolute dependence on the surface world's death. It is a beautiful, yet fundamentally repulsive biological system. The marine snow is a chilling, eerie symbol of the central question's darkest theme. The deep is literally nourished by the slow, continuous surrender of the surface world. It proves the dark force's power to create a massive, elegant, permanent system of biological recycling that patiently waits for the death of the world above, ensuring the deep's power is absolute. The cursed coral of the sunken cities. Coral reefs often colonize the stone structures of sunken cities, growing over the ancient walls of Uiz or Dwarka, literally incorporating the historical trauma into their organic structure. The horror is the analogy of the coral as the ocean's slow, beautiful geological mechanism for permanently sealing the forgotten horrors, turning the ruins into a massive, natural, submerged, haunted artifact. The chilling part is the belief that disturbing this coral, which is essentially a living organism growing on a dead, cursed structure, will reawaken the ancient curses, bringing a localized wave of misfortune to the offenders. This is a powerful repetition of the Curse of the Pearl, where the natural world is corrupted and weaponized by the supernatural influence of the dark force. The coral-covered ruins serve as a profound symbolic imagery of the central question, showing the ocean's patience and its long-term plan for historical erasure. The slow, organic consumption of the stone cities by the coral is the dark force's way of ensuring that the ruins are not only sunk, but are permanently, biologically integrated into the architecture of the deep. The deep-sea pits and the unclassified life. Deep-sea exploration continues to reveal massive localized pits or underwater canyons that are isolated from the main flow of currents. Within these closed-off environments, entirely new species of life, often bizarre, unclassified, and highly specialized, are discovered. These pits are biological time capsules, a historical mystery reveal that suggests the ocean holds countless unique pockets of horror. The horror is the realization that these creatures have evolved completely separately from the rest of the world, following a biological paradox of evolution in absolute isolation. They are the epitome of the hidden horrors, creatures that have never interacted with the surface and carry the biological secrets of a world completely divorced from the sun's influence. These isolated deep-sea pits are a chilling geographical analogy for the dark force's ability to create and guard highly controlled, terrifying experiments in biological evolution. They are a constant foreshadowing that the greatest, most terrifying life forms may not be massive, but simply unclassified and confined to a small, isolated area, waiting for the geological walls to fail and for them to be unleashed. The historical fear of the Kelpies. In Scottish and Irish folklore, the Kelpie is a mythical waterhorse or spirit that haunts rivers and lochs, often appearing as a beautiful tame pony to lure children and travellers onto its back. Once mounted, the Kelpie plunges into the water, drowning the rider and consuming the body. This is a terrifying historical repetition of the siren's deceit, using beauty to conceal absolute, brutal death. The horror is the symbolic imagery of the Kelpie as the ultimate bait, a perfect, alluring illusion designed to lead human life to a personal, agonizing doom. The moment the rider realizes the skin is cold and sticky, they're pulled into a terrifying sensory immersion of drowning, a realization that their choice was an absolute, fatal deception. The Kelpie is a psychological foreshadowing of the dark force's most effective weapon, the corruption of trust and the weaponization of false hope. It is a chilling answer to the central question, proving the lurking force actively creates agents that appeal to human innocence and desire, using the most beautiful of lies to facilitate historical erasure on a personal, agonizing level. The terrifying anatomy of the giant tube worms. Giant tube worms, Riftia pachyptila, are among the most bizarre life forms on Earth, living near hydrothermal vents. They have no mouth, no stomach, and no anus, instead surviving on a symbiotic relationship with internal bacteria that convert vent chemicals into energy. They are biological paradoxes, the ultimate life forms of the deep, thriving without the most fundamental parts of surface biology. The horror is their appearance, massive cylindrical white tubes topped by a brilliant blood-red plume that is actually the animal's gill structure. They are stationary, silent, and visually shocking, a profound contrast to the movement and complexity of surface life. They are a biological eerie symbol of a life form utterly alien, a creature that is simply a biological vessel for chemical energy. The tube worms are a chilling biological analogy for the dark force's power to rewrite the rules of life in its domain. They are a constant reminder that the abyss is not dependent on the surface world for survival. They answer the central question by showing the ultimate terrifying efficiency of deep-sea life, a pure, silent, red-plumed colony of life that lives only on darkness and poison. The historical fear of the sunken road. In various coastal regions, local folklore maintains a belief in a sunken road, a specific path or ancient track that leads directly from the shoreline into the deep, often marked by a faint line of unnaturally white or black stones. This road is believed to be the path of the dead or the track of the sea spirits, actively pulling travellers into the water. The horror is the geographical symbolic imagery of the sunken road as the dark force's physical invitation to the deep. This is a local repetition of the Wise and Atlantis horror, suggesting a deliberate path of historical erasure. The road is a terrifying open loop, always waiting on the shore for the next unwitting victim to follow the ancient invisible path to eternal silence. The sunken road is a chilling rhetorical reenactment of a doomed journey, where the dark force uses the land's own geology as a permanent seductive lure. It is a profound analogy for the central question, proving that the boundary between the surface and the deep is porous and actively dangerous, with an ancient invisible path laid out for the unwary to follow to their ultimate watery doom. The USS Scorpion and the final silence. The nuclear submarine USS Scorpion vanished in 1968, leaving a massive historical and political mystery reveal. When the wreck was finally found, the cause of the disaster remained ambiguous, suggesting the vessel was either destroyed by its own torpedo or collapsed under the immense pressure of the deep. It was another case of the ocean simply claiming a major historical asset without a clear answer. The horror is the absolute finality of the fate of the 99 crewmen, trapped in a nuclear metal coffin in the crushing abyssal darkness, their bodies and the historical data sealed away forever. The wreck is a massive technological haunted artifact that holds the dark force's secret of the disaster. This is a modern contrast between the immense power of human technology and the ultimate silent power of the deep. The Scorpion is a profound foreshadowing of the ultimate triumph of the deep over man's most advanced creations. It serves as a direct answer to the central question, proving the dark force's ability to silently, systematically, and completely erase the most potent symbols of modern warfare. The nuclear wreck is a permanent, silent monument to the ocean's unforgiving, cold authority. The historical fear of the ocean's eye. In ancient maritime folklore, particularly Polynesian and Greek traditions, the deepest, calmest part of the ocean, often in the centre of a wide-ranging current, was called the ocean's eye. This perfectly still, vast area was feared not for its turbulence, but for its absolute, unsettling stillness, believed to be the moment the ocean was focused, watching the actions of man. The horror is the symbolic imagery of the calm water as a conscious, silent, observing entity. This is a profound contrast between silence and revelation, where the calm surface conceals an immense, malevolent, patient intelligence. The feeling of being watched by a vast, silent eye of water is a powerful sensory immersion into the dark force's patient psychological warfare. The ocean's eye is a terrifying, eerie symbol of the central question, proving the dark force is not merely chaotic, but possesses a deep, methodical intelligence. It is a recurring cultural motif that the ocean is not a random force, but a conscious, moral entity that takes note of human hubris, waiting for the perfect moment to enact its historical vengeance and complete the open loop of doom. The terrifying anatomy of the frilled shark. The frilled shark, Chlamydocelicus unguineus, is a verified living fossil, a primitive serpentine-like shark species that has remained virtually unchanged for 80 million years, a terrifying relic from the deep past. It has over 300 needle-sharp, trident-shaped teeth, and its gill slits are covered in unsettling, frilly borders, making it look like a creature of pure myth. The horror is the fact that a creature so monstrous and primitive can still be found in the deep, silent trenches, proving the ocean is a perfect biological time capsule for the most frightening ancient life forms. It is a biological repetition of the sea serpent myths, a living analogy for the deep's unchanging eternal nature, impervious to the evolution of the surface world. The frilled shark is a living hidden horror, a biological answer to the central question, proving the dark force's power to preserve and nurture the most ancient predatory forms of life. Its existence serves as a direct foreshadowing that the abyss still holds creatures from the dawn of time, waiting to be rediscovered, a chilling testament to the ocean's power of permanent stasis. The historical fear of the black tide. In ancient coastal communities, the historical fear of the black tide was a deeply rooted dread of a massive, unnaturally dark wave that was believed to be a wave of pure bad fortune or a flood of demonic possession. This wave was not just water, it was a visible, undulating mass of bad luck that brought sickness, death, and crop failure wherever it touched the shore. The horror is the symbolic imagery of the dark force using a physical phenomenon to enact a psychological and material curse on an entire community. This is a terrifying rhetorical reenactment of a localized demonic flood, a subtle yet complete erasure of the community's stability and life force. The black tide is the mythological manifestation of a massive supernatural influence. The black tide is a chilling analogy for the central question's theme of supernatural influences, proving the dark force's ability to weaponize the very color and composition of the water itself. It serves as a powerful, eerie symbol that the ocean's destructive power is not limited to physical drowning, but can manifest as a terrifying historical wave of absolute malevolent misfortune. The lost Civil War submarine, Alligator. The USS Alligator, a unique early Civil War era submarine, was lost off Cape Hatteras in 1863 while being towed. Its wreck has never been found, making it a powerful haunted artifact of lost military history. Its disappearance represents an early, technological failure in the very region known as the Graveyard of the Atlantic, a profound historical repetition of the ocean's targeted destruction. The horror is the knowledge that the technological secret of this early submarine, a technological marvel for its time, was swallowed whole by the deep, denying future historians and engineers access to a crucial piece of naval history. The open loop of its location is a constant, subtle reminder that the ocean is the ultimate censor of man's most innovative creations. The Alligator is a chilling contrast to the unsinkable ambition of its creators, a small yet powerful symbolic imagery of the dark force's ability to erase human ingenuity. Its loss is a direct answer to the central question, proving that the lurked force systematically targets the symbols of human progress, sinking them into the abyss to maintain its eternal, silent authority over the seas, the deep-sea ghost traps of fishermen. Throughout the world's oceans, the deep seabed is littered with ghost traps, fishing nets, lobster pots, and long lines that have been lost or abandoned, which continue to catch, kill, and consume marine life indefinitely. These are massive, accidental modern-day haunted artifacts, continuing their deadly function long after the human element has vanished. The horror is the paradox that these human tools, designed for life and commerce, have become silent, mechanical agents of the dark force, endlessly executing a cycle of random, silent death in the deep. This is a profound contrast to the complexity of the living world, showing that the deep turns human waste into a permanent, efficient, self-sustaining killing machine. The ghost traps are a chilling metaphor for the central question, showing the dark force's ability to use the detritus of the surface world to enact a never-ending cycle of death in its domain. They serve as a constant, subtle symbolic imagery that the ocean actively collects and weaponizes human failure, turning the mistakes of the surface into the permanent hidden horrors of the abyss. The historical fear of the sea's white horses. In historical maritime folklore, the massive foam-crested waves, often called white horses, were believed to be the ghosts of drowned sailors riding the currents, or the active agents of a powerful sea deity. They were feared not just for their physical power, but for the spiritual force they represented, a constant visual manifestation of the ocean's sentient aggression. The horror is the symbolic imagery of the breaking foam as the vengeful, conscious spirit of the deep. This belief created a profound sensory immersion into the terror of the ocean's consciousness. The idea that every massive wave that crashed upon the deck was a deliberate spiritual attack, a terrifying rhetorical reenactment of the dead returning to claim the living. The white horses are a chilling analogy for the central question, proving the dark force's ability to use the most common, visible elements of the sea as a permanent, supernatural influence. They are a constant historical reminder that the ocean's turbulence is not random, but a sentient white-maned army of the deep, waiting to enact the ancient vengeance of the abyss upon the shore. The terrifying anatomy of the siphonophore. The siphonophore is a biological horror that is not a single animal, but a colonial organism made up of hundreds or thousands of individual specialized zooids, each performing a separate function: digestion, locomotion, reproduction. It is a terrifying, massive biological superorganism capable of growing over 100 feet long, a single, vast, networked entity of pure predation. The horror is the paradox that one of the largest creatures in the sea is not an individual, but a collective of tiny individual parts acting as a single, massive intelligence. This is a chilling biological analogy for the lurking force, a vast networked entity of terror that operates with a single, horrifying purpose, a hidden horror that completely defies the surface world's concept of individuality. The siphonophore is a biological, eerie symbol of the central question's theme of supernatural influences, proving the dark force's power to create life in a completely alien, collective, and terrifyingly efficient form. Its immense networked existence serves as a direct answer. The terror in the deep is not one thing, but a colossal, single, silent organism of countless specialized deaths. The mummified bodies of the drowned sailors. In rare instances, bodies recovered from cold, deep, or anoxic waters are found to be perfectly preserved, often mummified or saponified, turned into a waxy substance. These preserved remains, skeletal sailors found at the helm of a sunken boat, are the ultimate haunted artifacts, historical snapshots of the final agonizing moment of drowning sealed in time by the deep. The horror is the sensory immersion into the terrifying perfect preservation of the corpse, a profound contrast to the natural decay of the land. The bodies are historical proof that the ocean is a deliberate silent curator of human death, turning its victims into permanent silent exhibits of their own tragedy. They are the ultimate physical rhetorical reenactment of the final moments of terror. The mummified sailors are a direct, chilling answer to the central question, proving the dark force's power to maintain the persistence of fear across time by physically preserving the evidence of its victory. The cold, perfectly maintained remains are the most profound symbolic imagery of the abyss's authority. What the deep claims, it seals forever in a terrifying historical stasis. The historical fear of the sea's whispering sand. In ancient coastal communities, there was a historical fear of the whispering sand, a phenomenon where the shore's sand would emit strange audible sounds, often described as a low moan or a muffled collective whisper. This sound was believed to be the voices of the drowned eternally trapped beneath the shore, attempting to communicate their final doom to the living. The horror is the whispers of ancient fears given a geological, audible form. This is a profound repetition of the sunken bells motif, where the historical terror of the deep is translated into a terrifying auditory experience on the shore. The sand itself is a vast geological haunted artifact, a physical repository of the final desperate pleas of the victims. The whispering sand is a chilling analogy for the central question, proving the dark force's ability to turn the very boundary of the land and sea into an instrument of historical haunting. It serves as a psychological open loop, always waiting for the listener to bend close enough to the shore to hear the muffled collective voice of the abyss's victims. A silent, terrifying warning. The terrifying anatomy of the dragonfish. The dragonfish, Grammatostomias flagelli is a biological horror that possesses a massive black hinged jaw, filled with long, transparent, needle-sharp teeth that are invisible in the darkness. It also has a massive, glowing, bioluminescent lure on its chin. The combination of an invisible weapon and a visible trap makes it one of the most perfectly designed, terrifying predators of the void. The horror is the biological paradox of its invisible teeth. A weapon so perfectly adapted to the absolute darkness that its attack is fundamentally unseen, only felt in the final moment of consumption. This is a chilling contrast to the honest predation of the surface world, proving the deep creates systems of death that are deliberately concealed and surgically efficient. The dragonfish is a biological eerie symbol of the central question, proving the dark force's power to create life that is both a symbol of deception and a weapon of absolute predation. Its invisible teeth and glowing lure serve as a powerful symbolic imagery of the abyss's ultimate power. The trap is visible, but the true agent of death remains completely, perfectly hidden in the deep's eternal darkness. The lost rings of the Arctic disaster. The sinking of the SS Arctic in 1854, one of the first major transatlantic steamship disasters, saw the captain and crew escape, leaving over 300 passengers to drown. The horror is the historical accounts of recovered bodies wearing massive gold and jewel-encrusted wedding rings, personal haunted artifacts that symbolized love, only to become permanent symbolic imagery of abandonment and betrayal. The true horror is the knowledge that these gold rings, symbols of human connection, are now scattered across the abyssal plain, a metallic repetition of the human tragedy they witnessed. The recovery of a ring decades later is a chilling mystery reveal of the final, agonizing moments of a drowned soul, proving the permanence of the deep's claim on the material world. The lost rings are a profound analogy for the central question, proving the dark force's ability to corrupt and weaponize the most sacred elements of human life. The rings are a constant reminder that the ocean is the final, merciless destroyer of human love and commitment, swallowing the symbols of life to maintain its eternal, cold dominion over the historical record. The drowned ships of Doggerland was a massive landmass that connected Great Britain to continental Europe, which was slowly submerged by rising sea levels over thousands of years. The continuous discovery of archaeological remnants, stone tools, amber and early human settlements, proves that entire massive societies were gradually systematically drowned by the creeping, relentless power of the sea. The horror is the foreshadowing that this gradual absolute erasure is the dark force's most effective weapon, a silent, slow, geological inevitability that requires no sudden violence. This is a terrifying, historical, rhetorical reenactment of the ultimate patient victory of the deep over the land, a process that continues today, unseen and utterly unstoppable. Doggerland is a profound symbolic imagery of the central question, proving the dark force's power to erase historical civilizations through sheer patience. The submerged plain is a massive open loop, reminding us that the creeping, quiet power of the sea is the ultimate weapon of historical erasure. The land is not lost. It is simply waiting to be fully claimed by the cold, eternal abyss. The biological horror of the Yeti crab. The Yeti crab, Kiwa hirsuta, is a bizarre white blind crab found near the deep-sea hydrothermal vents, covered in long, silky, yellowish hair-like filaments that are actually bacteria colonies it cultivates. It is a terrifying biological paradox, a creature that is functionally blind and utterly dependent on the dark, poisonous energy of the vents for its survival. The horror is the sensory immersion into the biological extremes of the deep, a creature that has evolved into a ghostly, pale, silent horror. It is a biological, eerie symbol of the dark force's power to corrupt beauty, turning the simple structure of a crab into a massive, ghostly, specialized harvester of poison. It is a living, unsettling relic of the abyss's unique biology. The Yeti crab is a chilling contrast to the light-dependent life of the surface, a direct answer to the central question, proving the dark force's ability to create life in the most hostile, unyielding environments. Its existence serves as a profound hidden horror, a silent, pale, scuttling messenger from the deep's toxic, thriving biological architecture. The final sound of the crushing hull, the last sound a submarine or deep-sea bathysphere crew hears before succumbing to the pressure, is often the sudden, massive and absolute sound of the hull collapsing, the implosion. This is the ultimate sound of the deep's victory. A single, instantaneous, colossal sonic boom that marks the absolute physical erasure of the human element by the overwhelming force of the water. The horror is that this sound, the final, brutal, rhetorical reenactment of human annihilation, is instantly consumed by the water, never to be heard on the surface. It is a moment of profound contrast between silence and revelation, where the greatest sound ever made is instantly swallowed by the absolute silence of the deep, leaving behind no material evidence of the final act. This single, final sound is the ultimate symbolic imagery of the central question, proving the dark force's power to execute, consume, and censor the historical record in a single, surgical, terrifying moment. The implosion is the deep signature, a sound of absolute, unyielding, permanent authority that seals the historical record forever in the crushing abyssal darkness, the pentagram's shadow and the unfinished map. The final, terrifying truth is that the eerie symbol found on the stones of Wis, the forbidden geometry of Bimini, and the geometric perfection of the Baltic anomaly are all fragments of a single, immense, recurring symbol, a hidden, dark pentagram woven into the geography of the deep. This colossal, unseen sign marks the centres of the greatest, most absolute historical erasures. The horror is the realisation that the haunted artefacts and the supernatural influences of the Bermuda Triangle and the Sargasso Sea are simply nodal points on this vast, aqueous pentagram. The ocean is not a random collection of terrors. It is a single, massive, ritualistic engine of historical destruction, a permanent, global repetition of a single, intelligent, dark design. The central question is answered. The lurking force is the architect of this abyssal pentagram, an ancient, intelligent, malevolent entity that uses the ocean as its preferred altar for the systematic erasure of human history. The deep is a vast, unfinishable map of doom, and as you surface now, the final, chilling thought lingers. The dark pentagram's final point is always the shore, waiting for the tides to turn and the ultimate silence to begin. You have felt the chilling pressure of the deep, seen the shadows of what history tried to forget, and heard the whispers of ancient fears from the lightless trenches. But this descent into horror is not complete. It is merely the first plunge. The connections, the shared symbols, the echoed doom, the ultimate pentagram, are still forming the grand tapestry of dread. If you dare to continue this journey through the forgotten crypts of time, If you crave the awful truth that connects the ocean's silence to the world above, then you must seal your vow to the darkness. Like the tide, let your commitment rise. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and leave a comment below. What unspeakable terror do you believe the abyss is still hiding? And where on the unfinished map does the lurking force plan to strike next? The ocean has swallowed its dead and keeps its secrets perfectly preserved in salt and absolute silence. We have looked into the abyss, seen the phantom ships, and glimpsed the horrifying architecture of drowned worlds. The true horror is not the water's power to destroy, but its power to preserve. All the terror, all the darkness, all the haunted artifacts are still down there, waiting in the cold embrace, unchanged by the passage of centuries. This liquid crypt holds more than sunken cities. It holds the evidence of the shadow that touches all human history. We saw the repeating, terrible geometry of the eerie symbol woven into the deep, and as you surface now, back into the light and air, ask yourself this. What truth does the ocean's silence conceal? And what happens when the sea finally decides to give up its dead?